Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. To bring in the finale of What If the Reds and Blues were part of Overwatch. Link down in the description of the fan fiction of this, What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this isn't a scam. Chapter 30, so too shall it. Blood Gulch. The heroes of Overwatch, villains of Talon and the idiots of the Reds and Blues looked across the littered battlegrounds as Pandora stood proudly next to his two henchmen. As the army of follows kept dropping in around them, the ship stayed overhead as more and more kept piling out of, dropping from the sides and landing behind them. They all felt that unsteady feeling building up within them, that uncertain feeling of survival building up in their stomachs as they remained still as stone. Tucker ignited his sword and began to walk forward, down from the hill while Sarge joined his side as he cocked his shotgun one more time. Then came Simmons and Griff, Lopez and Donut. Finally Doc, who brought his rocket launcher out and backed everyone up. They shared a look together while gripping their weapons so tight their knuckles began to turn white. Sword in his hand he looked back as he spoke, "Church just needs a few minutes. I think we can last a little longer." "Oh come on, aren't you gonna say it?" Sarge asked. Tucker smirked as he looked at the now incoming metal minion mob. "Fuck yeah. Bo chica bo wow. Bitches. Now that is a war cry." Simmons admitted as he and Griff started to move along with him. Cavalry charge. Tracer pointed as Overwatch and Talon moved in as well. The two armies charged each other as their bullets, rockets and fire flew towards the opposite side. Pandora stepped slowly as his minions passed by him, his two henchmen going forward to join the match and aim for their own target. Getting closer and closer to ending each other. While their chaos continued, Caboose sat down and started to tell his tale. And the man was very smart and made lots of things. And the woman, she was fierce and tough and kind of mean to people who just wanted to be friends with her and help her and wear blue armor. Outside Reinhardt had smashed his way through about a few dozen null sector troopers who had got in his way as he charged at his target, the meta. Once they collided, Reinhardt had managed to drag the monster back several feet before it had eventually stopped him entirely. Gripping him tight he tossed the old man aside as Winston had leapt onto him, wrestling him to the ground. Anyway, there was a crisis one day and the woman had to go fight. When Winston was knocked back as well, a thunderous punch had knocked him back. Doomfist had come to see whose augmentations were better, his or the shell of the meta. As they came together to lock horns, Akand had held his ground as Rain and Winston had recovered from the floor. And she did, she left and she didn't say goodbye because she didn't like saying that. And then she died. Felix had stood between Cassidy, Farah and Baptiste as they circled around him to try to catch him off guard. Cassidy shot two bullets that fake Felix ducked and dodged, returning with a throwing knife that Cassidy was lucky to block with his metal arm. Farah flew just above him and fired several rockets that were deflected and nearly hit Cassidy and Baptiste. Trying to calculate the best course of action, fake Felix charged at Baptiste and ignited both plasma hand blades to try to cut him down. He was not prepared. A green cyborg ninja dude had stepped in front of his way and blocked his attack with a green sword. And the man was sad, and the baby was sad. So the man decided to make a special computer program, and that program would make sure that no more soldiers and no more people or babies would be sad. But the man's program had all of his memories. Sarge had beaten Tucker to the punch and began firing buckshot after buckshot, racking one shell after another as he hit dead on at Pandora's chest. Once Pandora got close enough, he went in for a bum rush but was grabbed by the neck and thrown to the floor away from him. Griff and Simmons joined in as Griff landed every Griff shot round near the target. Pandora walked through the blast as he was attacked from the side by an annoying drone. Pandora aimed a hand in the air as he burned the drone to pieces, then aimed at Griff, who had just downed his numbing beer, and rushed forward. With the blade on his weapon he took a daring swing but came short as Pandora used a headbutt, then picked him up and lobbed him at Simmons. And it remembered the woman. And the memories were too much for it, so it made a whole new program based on those memories. And she was also tough and she fought and she kept dying. Lopez fired at Pandora from a distance as he kept nailing him with precise plasma shots. Except none of the beams were finding any weak spot in the world's most perfect armor, but they were annoying as he gained the attention of his enemy, who responded to the hits with massive ball of fire he had been building up, hurling it at the Spanish-speaking metal man who could not evade in time. Lopez dropped his armor pack down and took the hit dead on, making him fall to the floor. Donut stayed low to the ground as he tiptoed his way behind Pandora. Running forward, he jumped on his back. Once on, he was immediately elbowed off as Pandora turned to face him, only to then hear the ticking noises coming from his back. Donut had attached several grenades to his back which went off as soon as he found them. The explosion made him drop to his knees as Doc came in to help get Donut the hell out of there and to a safe distance. And the program decided the only way not to be sad was to delete the memories of the woman, and he did. And he thought she was gone forever. Tucker had stood his ground the longest as he went to work swinging his sword, cutting up at the armor, who only grunted at each successful swing. The only assurance Tucker had that he was doing any type of meaningful damage to it. He was only stopped when Pandora aimed both armed flamethrowers at him, trying to incinerate him, but Tucker swiped at the flames, making them disperse and sending him backwards in the process. But that's the thing about a memory. You don't get to own it. It lives on even after you die, and it goes from person to person. And they can tell it to each other through all of time. And they can laugh, or they can cry, or they can do both. After a few more moments of swings and hand-to-hand exchanges, Tucker lied on his back as Pandora stood with one foot on his chest. Tried as he might, the sword-swinging sim trooper could not break free from his spot, only try and wiggle. That was until a red sergeant had retuned and bum-rushed the maniac off of his friend. Pandora was shocked as he thought he took the old man out of the equation, the old man who helped Tucker regain his stance. Pandora laughed for a second while he saw their determination. How impressive. Because people may come and go. But memories are what we leave. While Sergeant Tucker kept going, everyone else was being overrun in their own ways. DVA's mech was beginning to spark and take some hits while Lucio tried his best to keep everyone moving together. Mercy was keeping Maga damage boosted as he kept gunning down whoever stepped his way. Everyone was struggling in their own way as time felt like the battle was moving still, like everything would be for nothing. And the best memories never die. Because they can't. Caboose concluded just in time as his throat was grabbed and picked up. He was lifted off the ground, him and his tank exoskeleton, by one arm. One arm he began tapping to ease up. Gah. And everyone lived happily ever after, and no hurt me. The end, the end. A bright light came from the caves as a whirring noise finished. Elsewhere. ETA 5 minutes. An old familiar voice announced. An old Omnic Crisis Pelican, the ideal vehicle for deploying troops rapidly into combat zones, extracting and saving hostages, refugees, those in need, and the preferred aircraft for former members of Project Freelancer. Along with a former mercenary who had kept quiet as the plan was being ran over and over in everyone's mind. Everyone being Special Agents Carolina and Washington, along with former Agent Reginald Wyoming, making this 4-man band the only group to not have to face Pandora, yet. Thanks again, 479 Carolina patted her back as she went to cockpit to chat. 479 didn't even look back. You're just lucky I owed Reggie a favor. What did we do? Washington asked. You puked back there so much, it took the cleanup crew 17 hours to get all the chunks out. And the smell lasted for days. And Carolina once bashed her head, out of anger, through the wall. The pilot had recalled. Oh, right, Washington admitted. Carolina looked away. I was going through some stuff. I'm much better now. Sure, 479 replied in disbelief. Hey, tall, dark and brooding, come up here for a second. Locust grunted as he stood up to go to the cockpit. Once past Carolina, he took his seat next to hers. What do you need? Well, you seem like the most, how do I say this? Least mentally unstable person out of the four. 479 complimented. Locust furrowed his brow. Thanks. No, but I need you up here for what comes next. How's your timing? I say mark, you say sink. Mark. Sink. Mark. Sink. Mark. Sink. Alright, good. You're all set. 479 nodded. Now, have you ever done an express elevator before? Locust loudly exhaled through his nose. Yes. I have. You may want to buckle up. Carolina told Wyoming and Washington as she got in her seat. As soon as the overhead bar came down, 479 flipped several overhead switches, then turned some knobs and finally pulled the final lever, sending them straight down. Locust stared at the elevation level on the screen, dropping rapidly as the numbers kept turning. His hand gripping the seat tight as he felt the shaking throughout the Pelican. Carolina was smiling just like the last time while Washington and Reginald were both turning green in their face, fighting the urge to toss up their meals from earlier. She couldn't help but make fun of them. "Hey guys, we're not wearing our helmets so you don't have to worry about the waste systems failing. This is why I preferred wet works operations." Wyoming struggled to get out. Washington rattled back and forth, "You're still an asshole, Carolina." "Almost there," 479 whispered to herself as she had her hand on the lever. On the ground, Tucker was struggling to stand while he heard several punches landing on Sarge. From the grunts and the thumps he could tell Sarge was losing. When he finally raised his head, Sarge was tossed just to the side of him, holding his sides in pain. Tucker stumbled a bit before he managed to balance himself to see Pandora looking at him, his holographic face smiling like a maniac. He was huffing and buffing, blood dripping from his lip while his sword stayed lit. He went for one final swing, but his hand was caught, then his throat was the next thing to be caught. As he was lifted up from the air, he tried to kick and use his other arm to free and bat away Pandora's grip, to no effect as he stayed suspended in the air. Pandora moved his head back and forth, almost as if he tried to examine his features. Very admirable indeed. Quote. Tucker spat in his face, going through the hologram and landing on the visor. "I'll never understand why you all love to spit in people's faces." His grip tightening, "Maybe I will once I'm whole. Then after I'm done tearing the Alpha to shreds, then I'll come back to each of you and have a way to torture you all one by one. I'll save you for last, so you can see what I do to everyone else. One by one, from Sarge to that big, blue, idiot." Pandora heard the faintest scream suddenly grow louder. When he looked in the direction, he discovered the source approaching rapidly. Caboose. Caboose collided with Pandora, making him drop Tucker. The big guy shook his head as he sat up. Just in time as Sarge and Tucker got to their feet to help him stand up straight. "Caboose, you still alive?" Tucker checked on him. "Of course, also, shotgun." Caboose answered, looking in Sarge's direction. Sarge got confused by the saying, "Which shotgun?" "Mine. Reapers. Junker Queens. There's a lot of people with shotguns here." "No, I meant shotgun, isn't that what you all call the Jeep?" Caboose pointed behind him. "No son, now we on red team call it the," Sarge tried to explain. Until Griff cut him off. "Warthog." The sound of Warthog's radio blasting its classic Spanish polka music was coming right at them, followed with the Warthog itself crashing into Pandora, who had just gotten up to be buried and crushed under the vehicle. When it finally stopped rolling and came to halt, the radio had finally died and the music stopped. The battlefield became silent as everyone looked to where the source of such a feat of strength came from. That's when they saw it. The sun had casted the perfect shadow, but the figure was just the same as they all remembered. That armor had the same shape as before. That was Church's armor. Tracer spotted it and immediately grew a newfound confidence. "You did it, Caboose, you powered up Church." "Oh, no," Caboose admitted, "that wasn't Church's plan. We did something much worse." The figure slammed its fist against their hands, cracking their neck and knuckles, before finally removing their helmet, letting a beautiful long blonde ponytail with black streaks free. The figure finally shifted and stepped away from the blinding sun to show the armor color to be black. She donned a camouflage cap and opened her brown eyes as she smiled at the group of idiots in front of her. "Hey there, cock bites." "Tex." Tucker cocked his head in surprise. "I don't believe it." Donut stared in awe. "Also called it, shotgun." Caboose snuck that last bit in. "Shotgun, fuck." Simmons and Griff groaned. Stepping right next to them, he looked at her with a smile and eyes full of admiration. "She's still something else, huh?" Church asked. Caboose looked next to them and cheered, "Church." Then paused as another transparent Church appeared right next to him, this one with a white glow. "And Church. Oh my god. It's a 2-for-1 best friend deal. Actually, hope y'all don't mind. Epsilon is going to be taking controls." "Church," the Alpha stated, "me and the rest of the fragments are gonna be on the sideline and help where we can." He turned to the rest of the group who circled around him. "In the meantime, I'm going to keep everyone healed by powering your health units and," he paused as something appeared in his hologram view. "What's this now?" While he was inspecting it closely, Winston crawled towards him. "What is it?" Is this what I think it is? More images and symbols popped up around him, connected by strings, like branches on a tree. Are these what I think they are? What are they? Tracer asked. Church laughed and rubbed his hands together, a new way for us to fuck shit up. He began by pressing a button, then swiping it and tossing it over to Tracer, who felt a new tingling feeling in her chronal accelerator. As the feeling died down, a null sector unit tried to swipe at her, causing her to dash out of the way by blinking in its direction. When she was out of harm, she turned back to see that she had actually managed to cut in half, leaving her stunned. What just happened? As more Overwatch and Talon members approached, Church smirked as he began swiping, pressing buttons and just having fun. They all began to feel overwhelming surges of energy and felt the battle now in a different perspective. What just happened is I may have just become a fucking god among artificial intelligence units. He bragged as he turned to see Pandora recover thanks to the help of his cronies. His army now recovered and ready, except they weren't. Not for what Church just discovered. Go forth, my children, and absolutely, wreck their shit. The battlefield now seemed balanced as the explosions, bullets and all sorts of projectiles seemed to hit that much harder. Different units began to appear around different heroes as they had moments to breathe and showed quick demonstration videos on how certain moves worked. Winston jumped up and crushed several troops underneath him while using his Tesla cannon to keep some at bay, while Delta had showed up to display to him a new way to use his shield barrier. Once several bots tried jumping and dogpiling on top of him, he deployed his generator. As they bubble went, the mechanical robots began to suffer from electrical damage. Delta had deployed the Tesla field as Winston had a laugh at the ingenious way to fight. Reaper had taken some hits and took cover by some debris as he was struggling to breathe. That's when he met another force of rage, Omega. Omega had shown him something that could have put a smile on his face if it wasn't hidden behind the mask. He disappeared into a smoke cloud and showed up behind the group that was firing at him. He popped a few shots off to regain a bit more health. When he was healthy enough and more tried to surround him, he unleashed his Death Blossom, but this one began to pull in troops that tried to run. He was a tornado of death, lighting up the black clouds he let loose with red blasts from his gun. Theta popped up as Lucio was dodging every shot that went his way, gliding through the field on his skates. That's when he presented the little instruction video that lasted a quick second, making Lucio look at his skates and think about how to implement them. He rushed forward and did a slide, leaving green trail behind him, where he whistled over to the nearest gun, Maga, who rushed over to jump on the trail. While he didn't need to move at all, he moved like a car on the line as he performed a sliding drive-by on several droids. Pandora looked back and forth to see how the tide had changed as he saw the odds for him winning drop drastically down. His fear of failure overtaking him, only for that to be surpassed by his anger and frustration at the matter, ordering the ship to pump out more troops. Above the ship, almost there, 479 whispered to herself as she had her hand on the lever. Locus gritted his teeth as he saw the dial go faster and faster, making him more unsteady as her put his faith on this pilot he had no real experience with. Uncertainty would be the death of him, but he stood there waiting to look for the number he knew she'd have to pull at. Once near the sweet spot, by the next 100 feet or so, he made a noise that sounded like sink, but more grunted. 479 reversed the lever and floored the pedal, her ship giving her all it could before they would meet their doom at the hands of gravity. With just about 2 feet to spare, the ship came to stop in midair as it hovered on the deck of the null sector ship that had been commandeered by Pandora. Once finished, the doors opened as Carolina stepped out first, aimed left, then right, finally looking back. Okay, we're clear. Washington and Wyoming were stumbling as they wobbled out the back door, while Locus just finished unbuckling himself and walked off normally. Once out, they looked around at the main area where the large double sliding door was and headed out. Carolina and Locus had stacked up on opposite sides of the door, while Wyoming and Washington finally managed to stand and walk straight. Once there, Washington activated his EMP hand and shut down the controls for the door, opening it for the team. Once open, they saw several null sector troops standing in line, right from left, with their singular optical sensor down. Immediately they aimed, waiting for any sign of life from these machines. Nothing moved as they began walking past them. Must be deactivated. Wyoming stated, "Hey Washington, knock knock." Quote. "Yeah, I'm not doing this again." Washington started. Locus opened the duffel bag he brought along with them for the mission, revealing several small but powerful bombs he brought along for the mission. He started to arm one as Carolina pulled up a schematic map of the ship, pointing to a vital room a few hallways down. Making their way quietly down the hall, they came to door where Washington opened it, showing several data codes flowing in the center. Carolina watched as Locus was finishing arming the device. "You sure these little tricks of yours will get the job done?" "I'm not proud, but I happen to know firsthand how strong these are," Locus admitted as he finished arming it. A blaring alarm blasted throughout the ship, echoing through every hall, alerting all troops of the unauthorized presence aboard. The sound of marching metal feet clanked down the hall that the freelancers and mercenary had just passed. Looking around the corner, Wyoming spotted the horde approaching as he readied his rifle cane. First through the doors was Carolina as she boosted through the troops, knocking some down while she lasered some down with her plasma submachine guns. Then came the next three as they gunned down those that tried to get up or those trying to get to them, keeping them from surrounding Carolina. Once the hall was clear, they regrouped to go over a whole new plan. "Well, they know we're here now, any ideas?" Carolina asked the three skilled men. Wyoming gave his honest answer, "Well, a few actually, most involve cutting our losses and retiring on a beach and sipping rum." "Not an option." Carolina stared the coward down. Locus thought of a more logical approach. "If we can bring these together at a certain point on the ship, we should be able to bring this whole damn place down." "Hold on, I think when we were in that server room I saw something that seemed important to the ship," Washington stated. "Could you lead us to it?" Carolina asked. "Yeah, I could actually." "Then let's move." Carolina loaded her guns as they all followed Washington. Back on the ground. Beautiful chaos, the only proper way to describe what was currently happening on the battlefield, as the tide had shifted and the members of Overwatch and Talon were practically wiping the army of machines down. These new abilities, unlocked by seemingly never-ending genius of Church, the Alpha, had everyone in an overpowered state. Explosions, bullets and hits echoed against the canyon walls while Pandora grew more and more furious. Lopez, Sarge and Donut had jumped up from their cover to light up some null sector troops. Sarge and Lopez gunning several down with their combined assault, and Donut with a few well-tossed grenades he blew apart the back-firing line. One of the null sector pieces had split off and nailed Lopez in the throat area where the neck might be located. Sarge saw his Omnic companion take a hit. "Lopez, speak to me, are you okay?" Lopez glitched for a few moments before his throat had recovered. Sitting back up, he placed a hand on his head. "Yeah, I'm still functioning at optimal capacity." "Lopez, you just learned English," Donut exclaimed. Lopez first glared at Donut. "Idiot, I've always been able to understand English. You morons just can't understand Span." That's when the realization had occurred he could now speak proper, plain English. I can speak English. I can speak English. About damn time. I was getting tired of you just looking at us with that blank expression," Sarge replied. Lopez immediately snapped his head to Sarge as he grabbed onto his shoulders. "Oh ho, do I have something to tell you. This has been a long time coming, for the past 20 years. You Sarge, are..." Lopez was immediately cut off when another Omnic part had come undone and hit him in the back of the head. "Maldita sea. Esperas. No, Estabo tan cerca." Translation. "Damn it, I was so close. Darn, what a shame." Well, back to front. Sarge loaded his gun before charging back in. On the other side, Pandora was pulling up the numbers, seeing his chances dwindling more and more as each second passed. His metal minions being mauled by the newly gifted heroes, all thanks to his despised maker, the Alpha. He looked across the field to see his foe as he swiped through modifiers, abilities and more, as he himself was stuck with such an unlimited number of troops with set fighting styles. That was until he looked at a few specific points in the battle, Tucker slicing his way through some troops, and the Reds forming a protective circle. That's when he made realization that makes him superior to his predecessor, the one true way that really counts to him. The Alpha was emotional. His sentimental feelings towards the Reds and Blues would be his undoing. An undoing that he was more than happy to exploit. Pandora turned his head only slightly to address his two most powerful players. "Take care of them, prove you are the better versions than the original failures." "With pleasure." Faker Felix released several knives from his fists as if he was trying to be the Wolverine. Mimic Meta lumbered forward until Pandora raised his hand. You have a different set of targets. Pandora pointed to the Reds gathered together, receiving a confirming growl from his brute. Tucker had just finished shooting down more of his enemies when he thought to regain some high ground around the rocks on the ridge. Just as he rounded the corner he heard a beeping noise, one he hadn't heard since Chorus from many years ago. From the sticky explosive launchers they would use on stealth missions. The preferred weapon of that bastard, lying, conniving, cockbite, Felix. Sure enough, the moment he had rounded the corner he saw it, the explosive device ticking in his face, forcing him to move quickly behind the rock as it went off. Just barely escaping the fiery blast, he recovered quickly to try to find the owner of such a cheap trick. The mechanical sound of limbs releasing steam alerted him of his enemy's presence as he turned around to see Felix fake, his arms glowing red hot as knives sprouted between the knuckles. Although he had no face underneath that helmet, his body language and the past actions of the dead Felix left no wonder that there would be a smug grin beneath it. Pissing Tucker off that more as he flipped back up to his feet, igniting his sword. "We've done this before, haven't we?" Felix asked. Tucker had torn off the armor he wore. It slowed him down, but also revealed all the work that he had put into himself. His body was slim, arms toned and torso lean. He was also covered his chest and part of his arms with strange symbols, shapes in a writing no one could comprehend. These strange words that one could not translate did not really exist in any language, at least any language on Earth. Tucker clicked his neck while untensing his shoulder. "Actually, this time will be a little different." "Why is that?" "'Cause you had training." "Nah, 'cause I'm not even facing the real thing." Tucker smirked back, knowing damn well he wiped that copies off. Round 1, Tucker. "Killing you will be the best thing I am programmed to enjoy." The two prepared to clash with each other for a moment before taking the rush to meet halfway. Bang! Another shotgun blast blew a golf ball-sized hole in yet another null sector unit, crumbling to the floor from the devastating shot. The owner of the boomstick laughed as he loaded another shotgun shell into place, taking a moment to admire the handiwork he had before him. A pile of scrap metal he was proud to leave behind, as he prepared to brag about his kill count. Turning around, he looked at his team to boast his score. "How are y'all doing on kills?" "I'm up to 42, sir," Simmons stated. Griff just kind of shrugged his shoulders. "Wait, we were keeping track." "Med just say a couple, dozen." "Setenta y cinco." Translate. 75. "I'm at my favorite number." 69. "Damn it, donut." "Well, at least I can brag I'm at 76. Guess y'all are lagging behind, taking your sweet time." Sarge mocked his team. He stopped laughing as a monstrous boom came behind him. Turning back around, he saw the bulky mass of steel muscle from the meta. As the smoke cleared, he huffed and puffed without the need of oxygen. When he fixed his sight on Red Team, the implanted memories of him being hurled off the side of the cliff stayed fresh in his mind, fueling the fire burning in his artificial gut. Sarge saw this as a new challenge. "Alright, let's attack him in order: me, Simmons, Lopez, me, Griff, Donut, then me again, Lopez, then Donut, then." "Hey Sarge, he's approaching rapidly." Griff pointed to the meta who was sprinting towards them. Sarge turned around with a sigh. "Meh, fuck it, just bring him down," he said as all guns and weapons aimed at the meta. As he kept swiping through the near-infinite modifiers, upgrades and abilities he was running through, Alpha was getting some constant alerts from all teams and groups fighting together, either requesting more support and health-based power-ups or demanding to do more damage. Perhaps listening to Doc possessed by Omega when he demanded that he transfers Mercy Staff into a weapon that fires harmful projectiles was a terrible idea. Well, at least everyone was winning and having fun at the same time. He then received a pop-up that he couldn't ignore. It was a live video screen from some of the many cameras that have been placed around the cameras that were once used to monitor them. As he pulled up the screen, he saw an unarmored, shirtless Tucker standing against the mechanically enhanced Felix. He was in the process of alerting some of the other heroes for help, when he saw feet of the meta charging to the Eds and Blues. Now is when things started taking a turn for the worst, as he hesitated to call someone over to assist either of them. Running some scenarios, he found a lose-or-lose scenario. If he sends too many heroes to aid him, they risk the rest of the battle turning. If he sends too few, they could possibly die. "Guys, I'm sorry, but you're on your own. I'll try to send some people to help, so just hang in there. I'll think of something." He apologized to his friends. Tucker immediately replied back to him, "Dude, the fuck you talking about?" Tucker replied as he held his sword with one arm, blocking the 6 blades Felix tried to use his cut him with. "I've been hoping for a rematch. Yeah, we gotta make sure the score is settled with this meta." Sarge replied as Lopez was fighting him off with his blowtorch to keep him from trying to vanish, as Simmons kept firing his healing shotgun shells at Griff and Lopez, who kept the meta occupied while Sarge replied to the comms. Church looked back at the feed to see Tucker not only holding his own, but actually kicking the decoy's ass. He was blocking, parrying and keeping the machine on its toes. And the Reds were acting like a well-coordinated machine, keeping his focus split as they laid their fire on the copycat. It was then he realized this was not the same group as before, they had changed and for the better. Red team was keeping meta in the center of a circle as they went around using all their abilities to keep him off-balanced. Lopez tossing his head, Griff hurling the Griff shot, Simmons launching his drone, Donuts grenades and finally Sarge's close quarters fighting. All being timed and spaced to keep the meta from locking onto anyone and getting the upper hand. That was until Griff tripped over one of his cans, making him stumble and prevent him from firing his gun. Once the fire let up for a moment, Meta tired to lock in on a target. The first he could see was Sarge, who was already yelling at his men to recover. Leaping through the air, he landed in front of Sarge, who slammed his gun multiple times to keep him at bay. Until he was too close, so he tired to bum rush him, but the Meta caught his shotgun and picked him up by neck, slamming him back down and kicking him away so he could go after another. But one came to him as Lopez slugged him in the jaw, 2 metal heavies going toe-to-toe. With each punch, bolts, screws and nuts came loose, oil and coolant mixing in the dirt while they proved who was the best. Unfortunately, it would not be Lopez today, as he was sent flying back with a double uppercut. When he recovered, he thought to use his ultimate ability as a way to get back. The missile pods popped out from his shoulders as they locked onto Meta, except the Meta had activated his cloaking technology at moment the rockets fired, hitting null sector troops in the process. Lopez tried to scan for his main target, but the Meta was right on top of him, smacking him to the side and busting his torso, adding several dents. Donut launched his Molotov so that the Meta wouldn't be able to escape by going invisible, not knowing the Meta had no desire to cloak this time. As he jumped over to Donut's position and gave a loud roar in his face, making Donut squeal as he tossed his sticky grenade in his face. When it exploded, it gave Donut some time to flee. As he was about to give chase, Meta received an explosive hit to his shoulder. Griff loaded the stolen weapon while Simmons stayed behind him. The bigger man looked to the side to see his friend. "Well, any final words, Simmons?" "Yeah, thanks for being my friend. Even if we were sort of forced to because of proximity." Simmons nodded. The two rushed forward as the explosions went off as they got closer and closer to Meta. They shot their guns as they jumped, ducked and dodged the explosive projectiles coming their way. They had made it to him as he picked them both up by their chest and lifted them off the ground. He would have slammed them down, had a buckshot not stopped him. Sarge got back to his feet. "Come here, ya big son of a bitch." The Meta trudged forth with each couple of steps. Sarge met him with some, followed by a shotgun blast. Closer and closer they met, as they repeated this dance so long ago, a dance that ended in the same way. As Meta knocked away the shotgun, picked him up again by the throat, bringing him close to his face. But Sarge wore a smile on his face. "We've been here before, huh boy?" The grip around his windpipe tightened, "Except this time is different. This time, you're fighting red team, and one blue." Slamming down behind him was Loudfoot, stomping into the ground, planting itself in the soil as the exoskeleton buzzed, clicked and hissed. The tanked cannon aimed at the Meta's chest while an assault rifle rested in the hands of one blue who can face Meta in strength, Caboose. He stood with one hand on the cannons and the other at his side holding his rifle, and Donut behind him. Meta tossed Sarge to the side while Ha and Caboose walked in a circle, one trying to size the other up. That's when Caboose spoke in a serious matter. "You know, people have always wondered, who's stronger between us. And to be honest, I don't even know. Let's find out." Meta charged while Caboose stayed, holding his ground and launching tank shells after tank shell at the charging behemoth. The first two missed, then the last one nailed him dead on. Meta looked at the armor, seeing it cracked and sparking, trying to repair itself, so he activated his cloaking tech and tried to get at Caboose with a sneak attack, but he was not counting on Caboose having a smart gun. Caboose fired rapidly into the path in front of him, aiming for nothing specific until his bullets have managed to locate the invisible menace. So he charged and knocked the meta up in the air with a double uppercut and finally hitting him with one more tank shell. They always told me he was the strongest. Caboose recalled as the smoke blocked him from seeing the meta. I fear that means this isn't over. As he predicted, he heard another beastly roar followed by the meta coming from the smoke to fight him close range. Caboose fired a few more bullets and tank rounds at his target, but the meta reacted quicker, ducking the shells and pushing through the pain from the bullet storm. Finally, once he got close enough, he used his bladed cannons mounted to his forearms to cut at Caboose's tank part, slicing the barrel of his weapon in half, leaving Caboose to shoot at him in the midsection with his assault rifle. He loaded a few rounds of hot lead into him until his weapon was snatched and thrown away. Now unarmed, he was getting pummeled by the massive mechanical might from the mimic meta. He tried to raise his arms up in defense but just ended up slowing down the future pain he'd feel. As Meta forced his hands down, he grabbed him by the hair and proceeded to sock him square in the face with his left hand while his right kept him in the air. Caboose went limp after the last punch, letting metal transform his arm around, the blade aimed for Caboose's throat. Until he was pinned by a rocket-fueled mechanical crusader, Reinhardt had just managed to get there in time and save him from certain doom. Following him was Bridget, who slid on her knees to check on Caboose, removing the locks that kept him in the exoskeleton armor. She checked his pulse and listened to his breathing as his chest rose and fell back down. He was okay but still down. Bridget shook his chest, lightly tapped his face, anything to wake him up before that monster could have a chance to come back and finish the job. That's when Delta had popped up before her to hand over some quick perspective. It seems that Caboose is unconscious, possibly due to severe blunt force trauma, possibly much worse. Is there anything you can do, anything I can do? Bridget asked the floating green man. Delta ran the possibilities through his mind and came up with one a few seconds later. I believe there is. It would seem as though your technology has the capabilities to not only heal but recover the body to its prime state. Okay, how do I do that? Bridget rushed the artificial intelligence unit. Delta showed a quick little video of what her action would be like. In it, she grasped the flail with both hands while her rally banner spun and she'd slam the hilt down at the center of his chest. She saw the little simulation and copied the actions, both hands on hilt, flag spinning and finally, bringing down onto the center of his chest. After a few seconds, Caboose sprouted up and began breathing rapidly, nearly startling the one who saved him. It took him a moment to speak. Bridget, what are you doing in my dream? She smiled and hugged close and tight, making the big blue guy smile brightly as he began to blush, then returning the hug. She broke the hug as she heard Reinhardt receive some more hits. The sound of his armor taking damage was as familiar to her as the sound of a metal against an anvil. So she pushed off and looked deep into his eyes. Listen, Caboose, we need to think of a way to take on the meta. Do you have any ideas? Ideas were not Caboose's specialties, but a thought did come across his mind. Wait. I think I know what can work. He pulled open his shirt a bit to reveal the wires still connected to his chest. The life support system. I already told you. It's crossed with overdrive system. It's not ready. Bridget, you are one of the smartest, kindest, most bestest lady I know. I know whatever you create will work out perfectly. Caboose looked her in the eye, putting both hands on her shoulders. Then turned his head and looked at the one button he was told not to push and slammed his hand down on it. Bridget had a small chance to come to from his words as she tried to explain to him the reason he shouldn't have pushed the button. No, wait, the adrenaline pump runs on the same circuit type as the jump starter. Meh, you'll fix it later. No, Caboose, your heart is about to beat really fast as you're about to be electrocuted. Wait, what? Caboose, now hearing the error of his ways. True to her words, the adrenaline flowed through his blood into his heart, making him more alert and focused. More alert and focused on the pain he was receiving at the same time as electricity flowed through his body, shocking him, making him more and more agitated. No, more angry. Reinhardt was taking his beating as the meta banged up his armor. With each blow, Reinhardt could hardly stand as he was brought to his knees. Reinhardt removed his helmet to look at his opponent face to face, smiling as he was ready to meet his maker, live with honor. The Meta activated his arm blade once again, ready to finish the old man. Die with glory. Reinhardt closed his eyes, ready to meet an old friend. His end would be delayed as a massive boulder being lobbed at the Meta knocked him off guard. The monster turned around only to see he was facing a real monster, Caboose, unarmored, with a blue sparkling glow in his eyes, veins popping on every muscle. His shirt that was now torn even more was ripped off in one easy tear, showing his body structure similar to Reinhardt's, just stronger. Even Bridget and every member of Red Team were stunned by this, as their jaws hung open while he stood there. Meta roared at Caboose, who roared back at him, as the big blue bruiser rushed each other again, this time with more fury and rage than before. Firing both of the main cannons, Meta aimed to take him down from a distance, or at least slow him down, which wasn't working as Caboose kept running with no sign of halting. Once too close for comfort, the Meta switched off his cannons and tried to go for a swing, receiving a jolt as Caboose ducked the attack and tackled him, lifting him up and carrying him directly into the nearest wall, that being the one located several yards into the side of the canyon. He rammed him into the rocks, then pulled him out and proceeded to bash his face into the wall, again and again. Caboose attempted to do it once more, but as he pulled Meta back, the machine learned and spun out of Caboose's hold, grabbing him by the back of the head now. He copied his attacker's moves and slammed his human face into the wall, about 3 times in total, trying for 4, but Caboose put his arms out, stopping the attack and following with a counter elbow to the face. The counter stunned him as he stumbled before getting ready for Caboose again, once more. The two giants locked horns and hands as they both landed in a grip match, the other refusing to go down as their feet dug deep in the dirt. Bridget picked up Sarge. Come on, we got to do something. I'm not sure how much Caboose can hold. Relax, kiddo, we just need ya to do something. Take this, you'll know what to do. Sarge grunted as he picked up something off the ground, handing it to her. She looked around what he could possibly mean. When she looked at the answer, she had an idea worthy of Blood Gulch. As the two stayed locked in, growling and grunting in the ultimate showdown between man and machine. Bridget was approaching with another new ability she had just learned from Delta. She let part of her flail loose. She began to spin it up to build up momentum as her steps came closer and closer to him. When she was at the ideal position, she stopped winding up the strike and let it flew, the hit damaging the sides of the Meta, leaving a massive dent. She was the new target as the Meta recovered from his feet, dodging Caboose's hold and tossing him back to the wall. He roared in her face before picking her up by her waist with one hand, lifting her feet off the floor, trying to put fear into her heart. However, she smiled as she gestured her head. Sarge wanted me to ask you. Does that thing still look like a big cat to you? He followed. He gestured direction as he saw the warthog, now stripped from its tow cable, the cable being held by one giant rocket-powered crusader who laughed as he readied himself to pull. When he looked down, he saw the hook snatched tight to his belt. While he was stunned, Caboose came up and put him in full Nelson to hold him in place. Reinhardt charged and the chain went tight, as Caboose held the monster by his top half as the chain yanked on the bottom half of him. They both roared as one tried to break free and the other kept holding tight. There was some popping noises, some snapping of wires, and then finally, something gave. That something being the Meta's body as it snapped in two. Reinhardt fell forward, looking back to see his pupil hold up the top part of a man who used to be a fearsome opponent. Giving a hearty laugh, the old man made a joke. Ha. I knew that metal monster was only half the man you are. Ha ha ha. Yeah, he is also in 2 pieces. Caboose pointed, not getting the joke. As he finally calmed down and his anger-fueled strength subsided, he caught a chance to breath, turning to Bridget, who was walking alongside the Reds to celebrate with the bug guy. What they weren't expecting was the eyes to glow orange on the Meta's visor. It came back to life and immediately wrapped its hands around Caboose's neck, choking the tired blue gack. Anyone. Kinda. Can't. Breath. Just before he could be joked anymore, Griff, the unlikely hero, jabbed the bladed end of his weapon into the body of that fake freak and stabbed it through his chest. Slamming it down, he pinned the still living Meta machine to floor as the rest of the Reds soon gathered to finally finish him off for good. Sarge kicked the Meta in the head. Hey Lopez, we got some scrap metal to melt down. Lopez looked to the rest of the group who knew what that meant, so grabbing his utility knife he made a cut on his wrist as oil began to spill onto the floor. Before it gushed out too much for him, he began pouring it onto the feral beast of a machine. When he spilt enough, he handed the knife to Simmons, who did the same with his cybernetic arm, letting the coolant hose in with the black liquid. Donut joined in as he took his Molotov, unlit, and smashed it on the Meta's face, the alcohol mixing in with chemicals. Adding more fuel to the pain that would come was Griff as he opened every tap on his beer cans in his six-pack and began dousing the poor monster in the flammable substance. Then there was Sarge. The old man had lit a cigar, puffed out a smoke ring into the air, then flicked it into the Meta's face. The beast caught fire as he tried to free himself from the flames. It was almost sad. Were it anyone else, and if it wasn't someone's copy? Sarge smirked as they gathered around the edge of the fire. Meta 0, Red Team 2. On the other side of the canyon, Tucker was actually knocked back by the Felix fake after receiving a cut on his arm from the 3 knives he was protruding through his knuckles. The blood dripping down his arm, cascading over his tattoos and down to the earth. He forced himself to stand straight as the cocky Felix was walking towards him, shoulder raised. "I'm the best there is at what I do. But what I do isn't very nice," the fake quoted as he raised both fists up. Tucker groaned as his response, "Oh, would you just shut up? I mean, come on. What? Tired already?" Felix mocked as he played with the blades in his hands, raising and lowering them in different orders. "Maybe you should have died. Get yourself a robot body, huh? Is that what you're pissed about? Dude, you're not even the real Felix. The real one did a 1,000 feet face plant to the ground after I blew his ass up with a grenade. His brains were turned to mush across 100 feet. Tucker told the copy-pasted version of his foe. Furious, Felix fought against the truth, against Tucker. Shooting the knives from his knuckles that nearly hit his target if he didn't duck underneath it before landing. He fired another explosive dart, detonating and watching as Tucker was knocked back. The original me may be dead, but there's one thing he got right. I'm faster than you, I'm smarter than you, and I'm stronger than you. And if I'm all those things above you, then I can kill you. Tucker rose to his feet, pushing himself from the dirt and reigniting his sword once more. Yeah, that might be true, but I changed. The sword glowing through the fog of war as his dark silhouette became more prominent. I didn't just work in a bar. I traveled, I trained and learned. Then his tattoos began to glow in the same way as his sword, glowing brighter and brighter as the smoke began to fade away. Striking a powerful pose after swiping the dust away with one swing of his sword stood Tucker, tattoos shining as bright teal as his sword. In other words, bring it on, motherfucker. Felix accepted the challenge as he sprung out his 2 other limbs, all 4 arms equipped with their own bootleg version of the energy sword. The orange blades shing bright as he rushed forward, his mechanical legs moving at great speed. As he lunged at Tucker, he soon saw how fast Tucker could move. In one moment, he stood still, then just when Felix had his blades centered at his throat, he deflected 3 of the blades and dodged the last one. His speed has indeed improved, as the steam coming off of each of one fake Felix's arms grew redder and hotter with each attempted strike. After a few more swings against one another, Tucker managed to take off one of the limbs. Now seeing that defeat was an option, Felix retracted 2 of his arm blades. Switching them for high-caliber machine guns, he began firing at Tucker, who ran to take cover behind a rock. As the bullets kept hitting the massive boulder, Tucker actually smiled as he knew he had this machine scared. As he heard the fire continue, he took a deep breath and waited. Waiting for the ideal moment to strike, counting the pattern, and then finally at the perfect shot he jumped from behind his cover and sent a blade strike at his enemy's way. Now he was down his lower left arm and his right upper arm. What's the matter, Felix? Having trouble keeping it up? He mocked as he took his time walking towards him. Felix had one last desperate attempt as he ordered his squad of troopers to converge on their position. They came running, sliding down the wall, all to try to ambush Tucker, who was still charged up, readied his sword for them to make the first move. In unison, all 20 of them raised their guns and began firing as they walked towards him. Like a Jedi Master, he began deflecting shots, moving at incredible speed, and slicing those that got too close, using a few of their bodies as a form of cover to shield himself from harm. His improved skills made Felix madder with each passing second, as he tried to look around for something else to throw at him. His answer came to him as he looked at one of the null sector troops next to him. He used the one blade he had left and removed both arms from the torso, then gave it a kick in Tucker's direction to give it a boost. Its core grew brighter, eventually becoming unstable as it ran at Tucker, who was already preoccupied battling a few other troops. Just as he finally saw it, the machine detonated itself, doing serious damage to him. Now more bloodied, Tucker hugged the rocky wall as he got to his feet, his hand leaving a bloody trail as he dragged himself against the rough surface. While he stumbled, he looked back and saw Felix's shadow approach from the smoke that was drawing nearer. He mustered the last of his strength to stand up straight to face his enemy one more time. Well, I gotta say, this was definitely something. Felix fake sarcastically commented, I mean the speed, the new glowing tattoos, truly, you've made this worth it. His gun trained on Tucker as his sword was still in the other arm. Tucker sheathed his sword, deactivating the blade and letting it rest on his hip as he walked around with Felix. Yeah, kinda disappointed to be honest, was expecting a bit more from you. Oh really? What exactly were you expecting? Felix asked as they walked in a circle, switching positions, with Tucker's to the battlefield and his against the canyon wall. Tucker had him right where he wanted him, despite the circumstances. How about one final duel, your gun against my sword? Oh, one more. Now that is something I can be down with. Felix holstered his gun to his side as they stood facing each other, like a western. True to his word, it was just like a western as the two men planted their feet firmly in the ground, staring down the other with the sound of battle being drawn out. It was just them, no one else in the world mattered. A test of speed and skill to finally put to rest if Tucker had trained enough or if this clone was the superior of the two. With the sun high in the sky, the Felix fake had his hand twitching like crazy while Tucker's was as steady as a rock. An explosion went off as their signal to begin, and in that exact moment time crawled to an almost stop for them. Tucker was raising his hand while Felix had brought his gun up. Tucker was faster, only because there was nothing in his hand, no gun, no sword, nothing to defend himself. He simply had his finger pointed towards Felix like he was using a gun, making Felix all the more assured that his victory was at hand. Just as Tucker brought down his thumb, acting like it was the hammer on a gun, a shot rang out. Felix actually was surprised as his system had actually registered some damage, specifically the main area of damage was his hand that held his. He looked down to see what once was his normal right robotic hand, was now replaced with mess of carbon fiber. Lubricant, coolant and other fluids spurting out as his hand was destroyed, but by what he didn't understand. He looked at Tucker, who still had his finger up aiming at him. He brought his thumb down again, this time huge chunk of shoulder metal came bursting off of Felix. Then again, this time hitting his stomach area. 3 more times as the shots fired hit his left leg, his right knee then right shoulder, forcing him to the ground as he couldn't withstand the pain and humiliation. Tucker finally unsheathed his sword and ignited the energy blade. He turned around to the battlefield and winked to the far distance. To the untrained eye, one would assume he was winking at nothing, but after years of training his eyes, his target was as clear as day to him. Widowmaker had blown him a kiss, which he caught and put in his pocket for later. He walked back over to the dying Felix fake and stared him down. The sad mess of a machine looked up at him in the face. How did you? How? Simple. I'm just better. Tucker said as he raised his blade behind him. Now normally I'd say some badass one-liner, but you ain't worth it. Tucker brought his sword back and with one swipe, severed his head from his shoulders. Then he kicked it in the air and sliced it one more time, perfectly down the middle. As the pieces fell, he did slip in one more line, I hate cheap knockoffs. Across the field, Pandora felt fear, more intense than the time he was the mercy of that blue brute, Caboose. No, this was fear that he would not accomplish the one goal he had set his mind to, the one he has literally killed for, sacrificed several pawns to achieve. While he was still getting more and more irritated, his troops were being cut down like they were paper match against the never-ending combinations of skills and combinations of abilities. His victory was in his clutches, then it was snatched away at the last second by him and her, the original, the one responsible for this whole mess by simply existing, and the ghost, the shadow of the woman the director had tried to bring back. He thought up of a million ways to eliminate them, but at this point everything on his list seemed far-fetched. No, he just needed to focus on his main goal. If he could get his hands on Tex, then Church's emotions would take control over his logical side and he would have Church. Although getting her would be the problem, seeing as how she was more powerful than ever before. Sir. One of the null sector units approached him. What is it? You are delaying my victory, he proclaimed as he stared down the Omnic. Intruders are on the dropship. The unit then projected a tiny screen in front of him where he showed Locust, Wyoming, Washington and Carolina on his ship making their way to the main reactor core. He simply inhaled and let out a deep sigh. It's simple. Wait until they arrive. The charger should be enough to handle them. He increased the amount of work on the core by 200% to both increase the speed in which more troops would be produced and to charge up his troops as well. He wanted every advantage he could have, because the strength in numbers was not going to be enough to cut it. No, in order to win for sure, he had to make himself more of a monster than he already was. I always did love a final showdown, Pandora admitted as he was finishing up tapping on a few screens. Chapter 31, End. In the middle of the battlefield, Church was flipping through the screens of all the possible combos he could make with the list before him. He already made Pharah more of a danger in the sky than anything else. He made Cassidy's bullets start to ricochet, even making Genji's dragon strikes launch when he swings his sword. He maximized Reinhardt's shield, gave Doomfist a shield that also charges with punches, and traded DVA's mech fire rate for a tighter spread with more damage. Mercy's staff connected to more targets, Moira was tossing more healing orbs, everyone was putting in more work. It got so effortless that the bots were practically falling around them like dominoes, they hardly needed to lift a finger. It probably helped that all the machines were reading Tex as the biggest threat around, well at least these machines were smart enough to realize that. Even though she was just using her bare fists and raw strength, she was doing more damage than even the mighty Doomfist and Reinhardt put together. Though he felt like something was missing. He pulled up a screen showing the face of his body, still being occupied by Epsilon, E. Will you hurry up with that present for Tex? Sure, I do all the work, you get the credit, he argued as he ran through the battlefield with a large duffel bag. We're the same damn person, we all get the credit. Sure, every fragment responded sarcastically. Tex just finished tearing the arms off a machine and using them to beat another nearby when Epsilon finally arrived, about damn time. What took you so long? Get off my back, woman, we went through a lot of trouble to get this. Epsilon shot back as he unzipped the bag, revealing her present, 2 fully automatic classic M16 assault rifles. She picked them up, admiring their 5.56 full metal jacket power, feeling the weight that they carried with them. Then she spotted the final gift he got her, that asshole knows me too well. She turned to face the incoming horde and began firing both rifles from the hip, gunning down enemies harder and faster than MAGA. Armor-piercing hot lead tore the metal machines down to the cores as the shiny casings fell to the floor. The smile on her face was sadistic to some, but Church knew well enough that the look was of pure joy. Epsilon smiled and shared his visual feed back to Church, who was looking at his screen of her for a moment. Church shed a little tear that was holographic as he sniffled and wiped the corner of his eyes. As he was starting to go back and run the many new modifiers he gave to the team, a presence sent an uncomfortable chill down his spine, despite the temperature around him increasing. He turned around and saw him. Well. Pandora, by the way, still the dumbest name ever. I like to believe it's unique and fitting. Seeing as how as soon as my box was opened, everything fell into chaos with you all. Pandora greeted. Church pulled up a screen and showed it to his enemy. Got to say, you're handling loss very well. Thousands upon thousands of null sector forces dropped in the matter of minutes. Closing in on an hour. We should be finished by dinner. Pandora smiled as he pulled up his screen, pressed a few buttons and showed Church. We should, I must thank you. For what? For reminding me there is strength in numbers, but sometimes, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Pandora started stepping back with his arm open, palms up as he looked above. Church looked where Pandora was gazing and nearly did a double take, seeing the large ship begin to move, covering the sky and almost blocking out the whole sun from the canyon. Delta showed up with statistics and presented them to Church, who couldn't make any sense out of all this. What am I looking at here, D? A massive amount of energy is being produced and channeled at one specific point. Delta explained. A weapon. Unsure, however, due to position, outside structure and schematics, all signs point towards a massive release point. Release of what? Church asked. His question was soon answered as the ship came to a stop as the glowing mass shot straight down in a beam, directly onto Pandora. The bright lights of purple and orange cascaded over him like a waterfall, cloaking him in energy so dense that it measured out the maximum on every scale they had on hand. All of that excess energy used to power up a ship that big, directed onto that suit. Delta. It's bad. Church. His power is literally off the charts. Compared to how he was before. It could quite possibly be equivalent of a few dozen fusion cores. Dozen. So our chances. Quote. Delta disappeared knowing he was told not to talk about it. Church got on the open comms to everyone in the area, everyone to my position. Epsilon, I'm gonna need my body back. As the stream of energy ended, all the heroes joined together with Church who re-entered his body. They looked Pandora who was knelt down, recovering and adapting the massive power to stabilize with his self. Armor shooting off purple sparks, streams and lines of orange going around the body to form weird shapes. Simmons and Baptiste's eye scanners popped in front of their faces as they started to sweat bullets. Simmons started shaking as he pointed, the scanner. It says, his power level is OV. Baptiste tried to continue but was cut short. Tucker snapped his head back at them, if you say over 9,000, I swear I'm gonna Yamcha you both. They stopped as he turned to Church, what's the deal? Well, we have the most powerful armor in the world, backed up by an insane artificial intelligence unit that's almost as smart as me and now powered by a flying fortress that doubles as a factory for machines. Church started listing off the dangers. Caboose raised one finger to correct him, and you forgot the flamethrowers. And the flamethrowers. So what does that mean? What do we do? DVA looked down at him. I'll put this in video game terms. Church said as Pandora finally stood up, mission objective, survive. On the ship, power core room. Carolina and her team felt the entire ship rumble just a few moments ago. They started to wonder, did something hit them? Is there a problem in another part of the ship? Did they still have a ride secured for later? So many questions and no idea how to answer them. They had their objective, plant the charges, get out, and blow the ship to Kingdom Come. The room they were standing in was large. After passing several rooms, an assembly line in a hall where several bots tried to ambush the four of them. After taking a moment to heal and recover, they snuck into the next room, making quick observations, taking a note of the two large doors on either side. In the center, a lot of steam coming from a ring in the floor connected to several large pipes. The floor had opened up. A pool of some type of thick dark liquid was bubbling as something floated up, a large orb or energy with a purple and orange aura coming off of it. So, that's it right. Seems a little obvious. Wyoming pointed out. Washington agreed with him, yeah, this isn't just stupid, this is, video game boss expose weak point kind of stupid. Good. Carolina took one of the bombs, that'll make this easier. Plant charges on each of the pillars that raise it up. Locust gestured to the three other spots to set them up. As they were finishing up wiring all the devices, a loud mechanical roar shook the room, making everyone pause trying to determine what exactly that was. Nobody dared move another inch as their eyes tried to scan the room. Please tell me, that's someone's stomach. The British assassin pleaded. Locust looked up and finally discovered the source. No, it was that. From up above them was a massive null sector unit, one that stood taller than any member in the team did, the size of a small house. Its white and purple armor was large and bulky, a massive blunt weapon in one hand, a pulse Gatling gun in the other. Its head had resembled a rhino or a beetle with one optic sensor in the middle. It stomped forward a few steps and slammed its fist to the floor, cracking the metal and shaking the ground. What the fuck is with this thing? Wash asked before the machine started shooting at them. They took cover behind the pillars and popped up to fire at the massive tank-like creature. The two side doors opened up for several troops to aid the big monster. I hope the boys are having an easier time. With the boys, Sarge was thrown through the air to Farah, knocking the two soldiers down and out of the way. DVA's and Lopez's missiles were burnt to the ground before they even had the chance to hit their target. The flames had reached them as it made Lopez glow hot red while he protected DVA from serious burns. Even a direct double rocket from Doc had little to no effect on their target. Church hid behind a rock as he reloaded as Tucker and Tex joined him, to join him and reload as well. He peeked out and saw Pandora setting fire to everyone and everything. shields protecting their friends and teammates as everyone was trying their best just to slow him down. Tucker took his time loading his gun, so, any possibilities we beat him. Struggling to come up with something, Church admitted refilling his gun with another magazine. I'm open to anything. You know I'm always cleaning up after you boys. Tex replied as she took a peek. Whatever we use it has to be a killer, something that's a one-hitter. Rockets and pretty much every ultimate has absolutely no real effect. Tucker looked up with her. Sorry I left my hammer of dawn at home. Tex told Tucker. That's when Church took everything he heard and had one option left. Wait, I got an id. He paused for a quick moment. You know about the Hammer of Dawn. I played some of your stupid games before. Really? So, did you enjoy them? Church. Tucker and Tex both shouted at him. Alright, I need the laser I modified. I need to hook it up to me and maybe I can use that to finish him off. Okay, what else? Tucker asked. Buy me time. He got up ready to run. Wait, is this? Oh Tucker. Tucker tried smiling it off as Church realized which specific rock they were taking cover behind. Tex was growing angry and inhaled so she could redirect the anger to the appropriate target. They sprung out of cover and went back into the fray, Tex and Tucker back to the fight against Pandora and Church on his way to recover the laser weaponry. Tex emptied both magazines into his back, squeezing the trigger until she heard the famous click. All 60 bullets managed to receive the attention of its primary target. He turned around slowly as he projected his flaming holographic face. Agent Texas, I must say, your tenacity is something we never truly understood. It would be impressive if it wasn't so goddamn annoying. Pandora recalled. Tex dropped her guns and cracked her fists. If it isn't everyone's least favorite artificial intelligence. The one that is supposed to be creative but does the same shit. I would not call this the same. I just want the pieces, not all of you. Well, definitely not you. What's that supposed to mean? Tex snapped. Pandora couldn't help but chuckle at the naivety of Tex. Oh Tex, do you honestly think we want you? The shadow of a man who could never bring back the real woman. You fail at everything. Your relationship with Church, your daughter, you even fail at staying alive. Yeah, well that's where you're wrong. I'm not based off of Church's memories, I'm based off theirs. She gestured to the reds and blues, and I always kick their asses. Pandora did the numbers in his head and discovered she might actually have an advantage thanks to that, but shook off the worry from his mind. Still, I doubt you can take me alone. She is never alone, Mercy announced, gliding in right next to her. Tex smiled with a nod before running up to punch Pandora square in the dome visor. Upon seeing her direct path, he fired both fire streams in her direction in an attempt to burn her down before she made it to him. Once the flames had reached her, he felt assured his victory was at hand. If he took down the strongest one, the others would follow soon after. He stopped firing and began to stand tall, until he saw her figure still running through the flames. He tried to recover and burn her again but was unprepared as she socked him so hard he actually stumbled. How could she withstand the intense? Thanks to a gravity bubble, placed on her by Zarya, shielding her from pain. When he recovered he aimed his fire back at Tex, but received a swift kick in the dome by Tracer, who came back another time, and another kick. She then recalled so that all three kicks would be relived in one moment for Pandora. Enraged he ran at her to swipe at her, but was stopped dead in his tracks by large sniper round chipping his dome. Far back from the action Widowmaker, taking shots at the shiny dome, the perfect target. He tried to conjure up a ball of flame to hurl at her but his gauntlets were deactivated, they were hacked by what was an invisible presence, Sombra. He tried to change to target her but when she vanished before his eyes, he was bashed with a shield, then struck by a Brigitta's mace, twice and then shot back by the flail whip. This time he managed to grab her shield just in time as his weapon had finally recharged. He aimed at her face and prepared to ignite her in a fiery blaze, but when he tried firing all he heard was the gas leaving the barrel. Then he felt a chill running up his spine, not the chill from fear, but the chill from actual freezing temperatures. He was being frozen in place from May. His movements were slowed as he tried to attack his new target but he was halted when a knife landed in his back, pulling him around as he was slashed in the face by a rusty axe made of scrap. He tried to back away but was knocked back into the fight by Farah's rocket, bringing him to the center of so many enemy women. As he looked up he saw Echo take the form of Tex as she cracked her knuckles while the others looked down at him. Dropped her mech right on top of him, standing on him, holding him in place so she and the others could absolutely wail on him. Kicks, punches, stabs and shots, all damage boosted once Mercy had activated her Valkyrie system and made everyone increase the pain. Tucker, Sarge, Genji, Reinhardt and Caboose looked at the display of violence and harm that the ladies of Overwatch were producing in absolute fear. I'm now starting to see what Church finds attractive about violence, Genji admitted. Sarge tried standing tall and proud but his twitchy movements could be read like a book, don't know what you talking about. This is just a usual Tuesday for Ouch, that is not supposed to do that. I would be proud if I wasn't terrified at the same time. Reinhardt admitted. Caboose, remember what I taught you. Tucker needed to make sure. Caboose nodded, don't ever put your thingy in crazy. Yeah, add scary and violent to the list. Okay, I still don't know what that means. I know buddy. Sarge clapped his hands together, well I say we can wrap this up, let's head back to Red Basin we can. A fiery explosion went off, it appeared Pandora was done being treated as a punching bag for everyone and activated his ultimate to get everyone off of him. He finally stood up straight as he tried scanning for Church his sight instead spotting the 5 men in front of him. He took his steps forward away from the ones who had done a number on him and made his way to those 5. I'll get Church to hurry up and be his last line of defense. Tucker told them before he walked away. I'll get Doc, Caboose added. We'll hold the line. Sarge nodded as he and Genji stood shoulder to shoulder while Reinhardt stood in front of him. Back on the ship, Wyoming watched another decoy of his get smashed by the massive monstrous machine, as he hid behind cover, hiding while he thought of an escape plan. Locust decloaked next to him and simply pointed at him to get back in there and assist in the fight. Carolina was catching her breath after wiping out some of the grunts while Wash did his best to keep the charging beast distracted with an EMP punch that left it dazed and confused. No one has been hit too hard but it has been difficult for them to stay safe. Carolina had a couple marks on her armor, nothing too fatal but even she knew that she could not take too many hits from that thing forever. Wyoming did his best to stay back and away from the eye of the monster so he had just a few marks. The ones who took the most of the pain were Locust and Washington who did their best to stay as active as they could. Locust peeked from behind his cover to look over at the 2 good freelancers, don't suppose anyone has any ideas. Well, I would say run but it appears we are trapped within this space until we either die or destroy the core. Wyoming noted. Wash then looked back and saw the core powering up and shielding the null sector force, if we can destroy the core we can take that thing out. Okay so how do we do that? Wyoming questioned. Carolina cracked her neck and loosened her shoulder, leave that to me. She stepped out from her cover and walked out to look at her opponent while it was busy roaring at nothing in particular. Getting into a runner's position with 3 fingers, index, middle and thumb on the floor as she started preparing her overdrive. Sparks coming off of her as she looked like she was vibrating violently, shaking while she focused on Big Bot. When she had built up enough momentum and power she was gone from her spot in the blink of an eye and had moved so swift she knocked back the monster, making it stumble for the first time since they arrived. Then she did it again, several times to the point where every hit had made the beast take a step back. The charger had raised up its gun arm in an attempt to block one of the incoming strikes it calculated, only for the strike to be the thing that shattered its weaponized limb. As it looked like it was screaming in pain, Washington jumped on top of its back to climb on top of it, hanging on to dear life like it was a raging bull. He charged up his EMP punch while holding on for dear life with the other hand, then once it was fully charged he delivered the punch directly on top of the beast's head. The force, added with the electromagnetic pulse, made the head crumble beneath his hand. Carolina and Wash tried to catch their breath, please tell me it's over. Wash pleaded. Unfortunately these machines have no quit installed in their systems, as the mech grabbed Wash and threw him into Carolina knocking both against the hard light barrier that trapped them inside. Wyoming groaned as he had to work more, oh damn. He pressed the button on his belt projecting the several decoys to go and attack the bot with Locust who went invisible to attack with his energy sword. Back on the ground, Sarge was the last one standing as Genji and Reinhardt laid on the sand, their armor burnt and their bodies too hurt to get back on their feet. Sarge was backing up and blasting away, as shell after shell casing fell to his feet. He had plenty of time to reload as Pandora walked slowly, full of confidence that his victory was at hand in just a few moments. When he tried shooting one more time, Sarge's shotgun was smacked out of his hand. With no other option, he started to wail on Pandora, throwing a few haymakers his way, but the armor was too strong that it ended up bloodying his knuckles. When his knuckles became as red as his color-schemed uniform, Pandora smacked him with the back of his hand, sending him to the side. He stepped over the hill and saw Church working vigorously to charge his device and Tucker standing there guarding him. He started walking down as came closer and closer, ready to end his target. But his shoulder was grabbed and he was spun around to meet a closed fist that shook him more than most hits he had taken that day. When he recovered, he saw Blue Team's strongest, Caboose, backed by the resident medic, Doc, standing there behind him. Instead of grimacing at the brute, he actually smiled and looked at him with admiration. "Well, this is new. I hope you'll put up more of a fight than last time. After all, I'm much stronger now." "I know, but I get stronger the madder I get, and I'm pissed off," Caboose replied as he looked back to Doc for the K. As the two were about to collide, Doc flipped the switch on his device and the stream flowed to Caboose, making his skin as hard as diamond, while his heart was moving as fast as an engine. Invincible armor versus supercharged man, a battle of might and will. They locked horns and arms as they refused to give the other ground. Pandora had backed up and put some distance between them so he could start lobbing fiery projectiles at Caboose, who slowly stepped his way over so he could get close enough to continue to beat him down. Hit after hit, the fire would disperse against Caboose's skin as he stepped closer. When close enough, Pandora tried using both arms to incinerate his target, but they were grabbed and crushed, blowing up in his face. Caboose gripped his arms and then proceeded to hammer the dome with his own head. After several hits, the orange-tinted headpiece was cracked. Once Caboose released his grip, the two began their original slug match, their hits echoing back and forth while others were either incapacitated, recovering, or helping others recover. Tucker peeked from the cover he and Church were hiding behind to see the battle. That supercharge won't hold forever. Caboose has about 10 more seconds of charge, then about 30 seconds worth of fight left in him. Church calculated as he kept priming the weapon, tuning the laser and charging the power unit. How long will that thing take? 1 more minute. So, I'm responsible for the last 20 seconds. Tucker realized, then groaned, "Fuck, please do not miss." "Not this time," Church added, pulling video feed from the ship overhead. Caboose's hits began to strike softer and lighter, while Pandora's stayed strong and consistent. Then the light around Caboose began to fade and supercharged assist from Doc was no more. Caboose tried throwing some more hits, but they were slowed as Pandora started striking him under each of his arms. After a few more desperate tries, Caboose was lifted up by his chest and slammed back down. Doc started to shake in his boots as he began to back up from his enemy. Pandora's terrifying presence alone made him quake in fear, and the fact he was alone made him even more scared. Despite the cowardice creeping in his system, that survival instinct urging him to run, or that years of track in high school telling him to move, he stood his ground and instead picked up his double-barrel rocket launcher and took aim. Fired the first two at the same time, directly hitting him in the chest. When the smoke had cleared, Pandora was unfazed. So he loaded it up again and fired again. Pandora shrugged off the incoming hits and started to march towards Doc, who continued to stay still and buy time for his friends. When he got close enough, Doc was still reloading, then he snatched the rocket launcher away from the medic. "I have to say, I'm very impressed. I didn't think you of all people had that much fight left in you," Sigma complimented as he broke the rocket launcher in two. "Oh, I've been told that before," Doc spoke back. "After all, I'm a pacifist, but, do you know the Hippocratic Oath?" Doc asked before pulling out a bone saw and slicing upwards at the visor. The saw's sharp, strong blades finally made the dome helmet crack and reveal the true face underneath, making pause in shock and disgust. What in the double hockey sticks did you do?" His face, the true face underneath, was a Frankenstein's monster, a combination of different pieces of flesh stitched together, held together by staples and wires. Some features were unrecognizable, but the prominent face, the one that all the reds and blues were able to recognize, Pandora had used Hargrove's face for main features for his host. His possessed face had no color in his eyes, skin was pale as a ghost and gave off a rotting smell. "What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost." Pandora lifted Doc off the ground and socked him across the jaw, knocking him to the floor in one hit. He kept taking step after step to Church and Tucker, but his movements were hindered as more enemies kept returning to get their licks in. Sarge, Lopez, Reaper, Maga and Sombra shot at him from his right side, irritating him. "You all don't seem to understand," he asked as he activated some of his abilities. With his speed boost he zoomed over and beat all of them with one punch each. Griff, Simmons, Junker Queen, Baptiste and Moira started hitting him from the left flank but was halted as they destroyed a decoy. My perfection will is inevitable. When the real Pandora was revealed, he appeared behind them all and proceeded to lift up Griff and use him as a ragdoll to smack the other heroes away. He was about to drop Griff by his ankle but heard the sounds of more incoming heroes, throwing him over at Lucio and Donut, then catching a rocket from Farah and tossing it right back at her. "And your failure is at hand, Church?" Tucker asked. Church got his weapon up and aimed and priming, almost there. Tucker ignited his sword and his tattoos glowed. "Church. Come on, come on," Church whispered as he kept one eye on the video feed he popped up. "Church. Now." He finished charging up the laser and took aim. The bright red light was beaming bright throughout the weapon as he gritted his teeth, ready for power he'd have to expect from the recoil. Just a few more steps away was Pandora. No way could Church miss, or could he? As the beam shot out, the most powerful one-shot weapon had fired its life-saving shot straight up, missing the large dome helmet of Pandora. Tucker, who was currently being gripped in one hand by Pandora, shouted at his buddy for such a fail. "You missed. You missed. He was 3 feet in front of you. I'm tired of complimenting your efforts, so I take great pleasure in telling you just how terrible that shot was," Pandora said as he kicked Church to the floor, then pressed his foot on his chest. Church struggled to talk. "Yeah, it would have been, but I wasn't even aiming for you." As he tried to decipher what his prey could have meant, a massive sound like thunder boomed just above them. Looking straight up, he saw the sky, through a small hole in his ship, a hole that passed from the bottom of the drop pods, to the top of deck, and passing through a vital component. The ship's power core. Carolina had just defeated the monster in time for the protection barrier to go down and exposing the heart of the machine. She smiled, knowing damn well the only person smart enough to calculate where exactly to strike was Church. "You fuck up my tank, I fuck up your ship." Church smiled as held on tight to Pandora's foot while Tucker held onto his arm. Planting his feet onto the ribs of the monster, he stretched out the arm as he only had one free arm to do anything except defend himself from Tex, who was running up with a power-charged punch. His free arm did what it could but could neither catch or block the full force coming at him. He was struck down and had released Church and Tucker. While on the floor, Tex had managed to impale him into the ground, straight through his chest with a piece of rebar she had managed to pry off of the downed tank that Church had converted. Tucker stood over him and looked down at him. "Stick around, Pandora." A massive chain of explosions of fiery blazes from up above had gotten everyone's attention, and the sight of the ship growing bigger made several uneasy. No, it wasn't getting bigger, the wise ones thought. It was getting closer to the ground. Church switched to the main talk channel to everyone and called out to them, "Everybody move." He demanded as he, Tucker and Tex all booked it out of the path of the crash zone. Falling pieces of ship, some on fire, others just large, had the team staying alive by inches. Inside the ship, the series of explosions made the ground unsteady as the freelancers and mercenaries stumbled a bit before regaining their posture. The whole ship began tilting downward, causing a few bullets, casings and other debris to slide and roll in the direction the ship was leaning to. Looking around, they heard the rumblings from the ship and all that was soon to come, concluding that they needed to get out ASAP. "Well, I believe now would be the time to fuck off," Wyoming suggested as he already headed back the way that they came. Locus and Wash following right behind him as Carolina had retrieved her weapon and took off after giving them a much-needed head start. Washington spoke into his comms, 479 we need an extraction. On it, you better be ready to jump, because I am not waiting for long. 479 demanded as she started up the engines and began engaging in hover mode. You heard the pilot, move your asses in gear. Carolina demanded as she went off to the next room without them. Locus ran right alongside the other freelancers as he made a valid point. She is aware we do not possess the ability to increase our speeds. Sometimes, I think it does escape her. Washington admitted as they made it to the next room, where Carolina had been in the center, shooting down the last couple of bots executioner style. Then again, it opens opportunities such as this for us to stay out of the fights. You ladies waiting for an invite? Get moving, Carolina shouted. Wyoming groaned at the constant insults she dished out. Does she realize the irony in calling us women? I don't think it's irony, I believe it is more satirical. Locust countered as he stabbed into a machine. Washington called out to them as they lagged behind, guys. The ship is literally on fire. That warning had snapped them out of their discussions and realized that death was approaching fast. While they ran through the opening where they came from, the overhead ceiling began to crack and fall to pieces. Pieces of metal sheets, heavy wires, tubes and beams had blocked their path entirely. The only thing they could see was a small opening leading to the outside. Carolina tried to push and budge, but to no use. Even when the three others had arrived to try to raise up a beam blocking their way, it was no use. When the four of them had no power left to push, they backed up to catch their breath, racking their brains to find an alternative route or come up with anything to get to safety. The thought of death approaching made them think in high gear. Locust then made his life-saving discovery: he had not placed all the charges. One last brick of plastic explosives was all that they needed, and last brick was what they had. As he held up the improvised ordnance, everybody stopped breathing, worried something might happen to ruin their chances for survival. Moving very steady, he placed the device right in between some pieces of the collapsed structure, sliding it ever so delicately until he could reach no further. The group then managed to run a few feet to the nearest spot of cover they could locate. One of the walls had some scaffolding wide enough for them to stack up against. Once they were all safe and secure, Locust detonated the package. The blast sent scrap and debris flying everywhere around the room. Once everything had settled, they saw the ship, clear as day. They all began to run for it, the rumbling of the ship making them stumble as the doors to the Pelican had opened up for them. Escape was no more than just a couple meters away. Washington stumbled as the floor beneath him had cracked and opened up, catching his foot, causing him to fall behind. He winced in pain as felt an almost stabbing pain in the very center of his foot. Locust and Wyoming kept running as they passed Carolina, who stopped and ran back to pick him up. Once on his feet again, she put his arm over her shoulder as she dragged his limping body with him. Just nearing it closer and closer, by inches, that's when a bigger quake was felt, making them kneel to floor. With only seconds to spare, Carolina grabbed Wash by his collar and back of his waistband, tossing him into the ship, where Locust and Wyoming caught him. She tried to run in and catch the ship, but the current ship she was on began descending, and as she jumped she reached out for the ramp, but missed it by inches. Carolina, Washington called out as she disappeared from his view. When she came back to the falling ship, she fell into a crack that opened up to several beams and other parts to the ship. As it fell, she used her ability and agility to maneuver through pieces and debris to avoid crushing blows. Ducking, dodging, sliding and running to stay alive as the ship was coming to a crash. The crash. The dust, sand and smoke filled the whole canyon as the impact kicked everything up like a turbulent tornado would. The area was blanketed with black, gray and beige colored clouds that were so thick that not even a knife could slice through. No one could see anything for a full minute, making so many worried what would happen when everything cleared, if their friends would still be present. Static was coming in everyone's ear as Church did his best to connect with all the teams, the Blues, Reds, Overwatch, even Talon. His voice was choppy and barely audible, but his efforts were heard for everyone. All he needed to ease his nerves was just one voice to answer him back. "Come on, sound off, need a head count," Church ordered through the channel. An old gruff voice answered first. "This is Sarge, here with Reaper, Moira and two of the young bloods, and Lucio." A hearty voice coughed though. "Me and Bridget have your friend Caboose and Doc, and Doomfist is here as well. Rest of Red Team here, with May, Cassidy, Baptiste and Mercy." One by one they all checked in to confirm their safety and position for Church to check off. Finally he scanned the area he was in and began counting off heads. "Okay, I see Winston, Tracer, Sombra, Maga, Widowmaker, Tucker and Tex." He took a deep breath as he tallied the numbers. 0 casualties, people, good work. Let's regroup and get the fuck out of here. Carolina, come in. Carolina, do you read? Do you read? Wash's voice blasted through the earpiece. Church cursed as had to pull the piece out before being deafened. Wash, what the fuck is wrong? Carolina, she fell in the ship. She's still in there. Church looked back at ship that just had another explosion. By his estimate, she may fall victim to suffocation, a fire, crushing debris, another explosion. The risks kept rising as Church looked at ship in front of him. He switched to all comms and began calling everyone in the area, hold the celebrations. Carolina is in the ship, this battle has now just turned into a search and rescue. Not our problem. Reaper replied back. Church just rolled his eyes. Fine, y'all can fuck off for all I care. Church typed onto a holographic screen he projected, but I'm taking all my cool powers back. And like that all the powers he gifted to everyone were gone. Aw rubbish. Who would tease a group people with something so new, spectacular and fun to use? Tracer questioned. Looking at you Blizzard. Sorry but I need all the power I can use to scan her through the ship. With every camera down I'm going in blind without a locator. Once he finished a signal pinged on those with some type of visor. Mainly him, Simmons, Baptiste and anyone wearing a helmet or had cybernetic eyes. It was definitely deep within the ship, so they needed to act fast. Alright if you can move, get to her. Hold up, first. Tex paused him from taking another step before looking at Sombra. I need your cloaking device. Sorry Chica, not happening. Sombra was about to vanish but was halted as Tex grabbed her arm. I wasn't asking, Chica. Tex leaned in close. She heard the heavy feet from Maga approach and turned to meet his gaze. And what if I say N? He tried to argue, but it was kind of hard to argue when a steel-toed boot had kicked you in the balls at killer speed with the force to crush concrete. After the ball-crushing sound, his voice began squealing in a high pitch as he grabbed his groin and fell. Tex turned once again to Sombra who rolled her eyes and gave up the device. Whatever, I always have more. She finally disappeared from view with a wave of her hand. Tucker took a moment to talk to Widowmaker. So, thanks. You're welcome, and merci. She replied back. Merci. For what? He paused as she pressed her lips against his once more. Her lips felt so warm that Tucker felt the heat rush to the rest of his face. As his blush started to fade he closed his eyes once more and leaned into it, one cupping her back and the other caressing her cheek. That kiss could have gone on forever, especially because neither party or the observers were interested in trying to stop it. The only thing that did interrupt it, was Tucker's need for air as he gasped for it once they parted. For making me feel truly alive once more. She used her grappling hook to zip away into the smoke and out of his view once more. Tucker smirked once again. Damn, why are the honest ones always the ones who leave me hanging? Once the three regrouped and joined together with Tracer and Winston, Tucker cut a large enough hole for all of them to fit through. The dark ship was only illuminated by small fires and sparks that showed the shadows of debris that littered their patch to Carolina. Tucker kept his sword lit up before anyone stepped in first. So, ladies first, Church asked looking at Tex. Tex groaned, rolling her eyes before stepping in first. Asshole. Shut up, bitch. He followed right after her, patting Winston on the back as he passed him. The eerie darkness in the ship was accompanied by the sounds of metal creaking, sparks going off at random and pieces of debris swinging from wires and hoses. The clouds of dust that came in forced a few people to cough if only just to clear their throats. As they stood at a good spot they looked around to see several deactivated machines, remain motionless and lifeless, like they were in a graveyard. Carolina. Church's call out echoed throughout the ship, making the group he was practically jump out of their skin. Tucker turned his bro towards him. Thanks Church. I may never have the hiccups again. Church pressed his finger to his temple to see if he could locate a more precise signal from Carolina. Whatever the material the ship was, caused a blockage in communications, either that or something else was amidst. Whatever it was made locating her damn near impossible. Elsewhere. As the ship fell Carolina used her skills, agility and reflexes to maneuver past chunks of metal, null sector troops and all sorts of mayhem that tried to take her out. She ran on crumbling pieces, collapsing beams and leaping over panels, sheets and other scrap that kept on coming at her. Deeper and deeper into the belly of the beast she kept descending trying to get to some sort of safety or just stay alive as best she could. The entire ship seemed to have jolted as the collision with the ground stopped everything dead in its track. Carolina had just managed to catch a bundle of wires in time, though the sudden force nearly tore off her arm as a loud cracking noise followed by a dull but sharp pain emanating from her left shoulder. Dulled only by the fact that the adrenaline pumping through her veins and her mind was already racing to everything else in the way. But the now useless arm hung at her side as she was now taking tumbles, smacking against different surfaces until she slammed against a wall hard enough that everything faded to black and she lost all consciousness. When she came to her, she moved wobblily and laid with her face pressed against some type of cold sheet of metal, like waking from a slumber that lasted days. The thing that awakened her was some dust that tingled her nose and throat, causing coughs to escape her lips. Slowly she attempted to rise from the floor. In doing so she soon discovered she was stuck between a rock and a hard place, or more accurately a steel scaffolding that weighed too much to move. Tried as she'd like, every time she tried to move it with one hand incapable of effort, it was pointless. She laid her head back as the pain in her body was now beginning to be more noticeable due to the adrenaline now wearing off. Using her one free arm and the memories about the technology from Project Freelancer, she brought her arm up to her face and used her chin, teeth and tongue to open up a panel and override the emergency beacon. It was a simple, but complicated steps involving opening the panel, biting some wires and then managing to cross them over with each other. When she was finished she didn't need to guess if it worked properly, because the blinking yellow light on it taught her that her beacon signal was activated. Now it was a matter of time hoping that the group was smart enough to pinpoint her location. Well, at least there was a few out there who would be smart enough to carry out such a task. So she laid her head back and began to grow tired, too tired to move but in too much pain to relax. It was when she heard loud banging sounds, metal shifting and being heaved out of the way, the sound of someone approaching her position. She smiled and started to call out to whoever was approaching, "Hey, over here." The figure began to take steps around the corner, still missing Carolina by inches as it kept surveying and moving back and forth. Kind of swaying and stumbling in the shadows before getting closer and closer. "I'll admit, you sure are a sight for sore eyes, oh fuck me." Church's group. After a few minutes of checking corners and walking down the rooms of whatever was left of the ship, the heroes grew more and more cautious as this place was beginning to look like something from a horror film. The darkness was only accompanied by dripping fluids and the occasional spark sent chills down everyone's spine. The only comfort that some of them had was the fact that Tucker's sword lit the way. Eventually they managed to meet some of the others who had also made their way through the giant aircraft. Another couple minutes and still no sign of here. Fear was on the rise and hope was dwindling fast. A magical noise restored all faith within Church. Carolina's emergency distress beacon, she never needed it, so the fact it worked was a miracle even of itself. "Guys, she's over here," Church called out with joy. He wasted no time and began running after the signal, leaving those who could not track it behind him. He ran towards it like a pup following its best friend. He found the signal was just around the corner from an incredibly large structure, dividing the path to her. Right lead to a downward slope, left was an upward ridge. He made the climb to the top, see if he would need a higher view to spot her. When he made it to the top, all color in his face disappeared. She was there, standing up with the assistance of Pandora, with his hand wrapped around the back of her neck in a tightened grip, in the middle of the room. The area was quite large. This room must have been an entire hall given the size. There were small trickles of blood leaving her neck where Pandora's fingers were digging into. Any deeper and she would be dead within seconds. He took a heavy sigh as he saw Tucker and Tex arrive around the corner, raising his hand to stop them. "Pandora, I know it's filthy fucking rich coming from me of all people. But your powers are bullshit," Church exclaimed. Carolina looked over at Church with a guessing glance. "Ya crashed the ship on top of him." "Yeah, okay, we need to stop assuming that is surefire way to kill someone. It's a fucking ship, Carolina. How does anyone survive that?" "Ahem, now then, let's get down to business." Pandora interrupted. "You know what I want. You know what is at risk, so let's just cut the shit and get over here." "Alright, just give me a second." Church calmed him down as he turned to look Tucker in the eyes. Tucker nodded to his friend he stood next to. "What's the plan? You always have one." "I don't, not this time." Church explained. "If I try to think of one, he'll come up with a counter just as fast. Plus no one here, not even Tracer, can reach for Carolina and get out of there in time. This is the only way. Stay here." "Not happening." Tucker took one step towards his friend. Church responded by striking him with a punch to the gut. I know. I'm sorry. He began a slow walk. He was thinking with every step he took. Not about an escape or a plan, but just reminiscing about everything, his friends, the adventures that they shared and the one that they could have had could things have gone differently. All was coming to an end as he stopped walking as he stood within an arm's reach of Pandora. Let her go, Church demanded. Carolina shook her head as Church made his order. Pandora smiled and tipped his head, as you wish. He began to lower her to the ground, then immediately threw her over Church's head to where Tracer and Tucker were waiting for them. The rest of the Reds and Blues had managed to make their way inside to check on them. Church turned his head to watch her hit the two of them hard. Anger rising, he began to grow in size and strength but was cut off when Pandora grabbed Church's throat with his right hand and tried to cover his face with his left. Struggling, Church managed to say a few words before the hand made contact. Pandora, you bastard of my mind. I know, now just give in. He pushed further and further onto his face. Church fought with every muscle in his body to keep that hand off of him. He took his eyes away from Pandora to avoid seeing his end. As it neared his face, he had one more thing to say. Ya ever wonder why they tell ya not to worry about the fathers in the wild? This made Pandora pause, puzzled by the sudden words, "'Cause it's the mama that kills ya." Church smirked. Pandora felt a chill run up his borrowed body's spine. If an already deceased body could crap itself, he would have. He slowly looked behind him to see Tex. She had taken the other way around. Her knuckles were balled up, turning white, teeth grinding so loud you could compare it to metal, and her eyes were redder than Sarge and filled with a fury that could not be matched. He tired to release Church to have both hands capable of defending himself, but he found himself held back by the man who he had attempted to kill. As he felt himself pulled back, he tried flipping around so he could face her. He shifted his body around just in time. With his left arm free, he tried going for a swing, but Tex was going for a kick. Steel-toed boot, fueled by super soldier that is already agitated, collided with testicles of a stolen stiff, that was linked to an eye that was once named Sigma. Everyone in the room who witnessed it, regardless of history, gender or race, all collectively, felt as though they experienced that pain as they winced all at once. All except for Griff. That is so fucking awesome when it happens to someone else. As Pandora came back to the ground and fell to his knees, clutching his lone family jewels, Tex seized the moment to put him in a rear naked choke. Her right wrapped around his neck, as the left held his head, the two arms connected in an inseparable link. She held him tight as she could as she looked up at Church. Now. Church nodded as he dropped a device on the ground. It took a moment for everyone to see what it was. Winston actually had to reach behind his back just to make sure. Church must have picked it when he patted him on the back, his shield barrier. Church dropped it on the floor to activate it, then he charged up both his hands, a strange bluish glow emitting from the palms. Sorry old friend, but this is the end. Church put both hands on the side of Pandora's head and began to try again to flood his mind with all memories of the pain and suffering that split his mind apart. Pandora screamed bloody murder as he felt his mind being ripped apart. All while Tex was determined not to release him no matter how hard he struggled or how much he squirmed. Her grip was solid. Tucker started to run up and cheer his friend on. Hell yeah, waste his ass Kura, what the fuck? Tucker asked as he held his nose, which ran face first within a barrier that was Winston's. Church kept his focus on his enemy. I'm sorry, but the only way to finish this if I relive the experience with him. There's no possibility where this ends in a way where we come out on top. No. Don't you dare, don't you fucking dare. Tucker demanded as he tried to look his friend in the eyes through the barrier. Church let some artificial tear escape his eyes. This is. No. Please don't. Goodbye. Tucker fell to his knees as he let his hands slide down the impenetrable wall. He closed his eyes and held his head down as he knew that when Church runs the numbers, he knows that it's more than likely always accurate. It still wouldn't stop him or the others from trying to save him. The 7 other members of Blood Gulch, aside from Carolina, all rushed over to try and do whatever they could to break the modified shield that Church started blasting his shotgun at point-blank range. Griff hacked away with the Griffshot's blade. Simons unleashed several drones. Donut placed several grenades down, while Lopez tried to burn through it with his hand torch. Doc had turned up his medical device and used it on Caboose, who then kept throwing punches at the barrier. With his fists clenched he threw furious ferocious haymaker after haymaker at the field. Tucker got back on his feet and continued slashing at the barrier to free his friend from his selfless sacrifice. While Church was busy destroying himself, Tex and all the other fragments trapped in the dome shield, he could feel his concentration fading as he lost his strength. As Pandora was screaming for the painful memories to cease, Tex lost her ability to remain stoic. Her eyes were drooping and her grip was loosening, she could hardly a few more seconds. That's when she fell backwards and collapsed underneath the weight of her fading life. Once her hold dropped, Pandora made his move. Pandora batted Church's hands away, then knocked him down by slugging him in his chest. While Church was trying to recover, so was Pandora as he stayed on his knees, catching his breath and using all the rage building up inside him as a way to fuel his desire. After taking the hit to the chest, Church knew a few ribs must have cracked due to the force, and with all units still drained he couldn't heal. But he had people to protect, people to save, so he forced himself up to face his enemy. The two rose up at the same time. Church tried to grab Pandora's face before his strength could manifest. As he reached out, Pandora caught his arm just inches before it made contact. Pandora tried to do the same but was caught immediately by Church. The two were at a standstill. Outside, the crew saw the scene within, their eyes widened while Church had struggled to keep himself alive. Motivation and desperation made the already tired Sim troopers push even harder. None of them were making any real progress, despite the cracks showing that shield was staying strong. All their arms were heavy, their firepower were the only things consistent, but the flames, explosions and buckshot were too spread out to do any consistent damage. Church and Pandora were still locked in together, struggling to gain ground over the other as they were able to recuperate their strength. The only difference was that Church was reaching his peak, while Pandora had more strength incoming. If the standstill went on any longer, then Church would most likely lose and die, but he couldn't think of any way to get the upper hand. If he tried to maneuver, Pandora would counter. The only person being consistent was Caboose. His strikes were hard and precise, they didn't falter or slow down, every punch against the shield sounded like a crack of thunder. Once Doc's supercharge was gone, Caboose kept going just as hard. His knuckles began to stain the shield wall with his own blood when Knuckles started to turn red again. He ignored all the pain and kept his tearing eyes locked onto what truly mattered the most to him. Church heard the bangs just nearby, but found himself losing the test of strength between him and Pandora. THOOM. While his hand that tried to reach Pandora stayed still, Pandora's hand was getting closer and closer to his face. THOOM. He found it impossible to remain 2 feet, dropping his knee to the ground while Tex struggled to get back up. THOOM. His end was approaching fast, so he closed his eyes, because the last thing he wanted to see was Pandora's Frankenstein's monster face grinning over him. Pandora was celebrating with a maniacal laugh, his victory finally at hand. A hand, covered and spurting out blood, was gripping Pandora's shoulder so tight it crushed the armor underneath it. That hand was connected to Caboose, who was seething with rage. His hands were incapable of throwing a punch without sustaining even more damage, but luckily he didn't just have his hands to help him out. Caboose delivered a hard headbutt, cracking the borrowed nose of Pandora, making him cover his face long enough for the big guy to put him in a full Nelson hold. Church, now. Church did exactly as Caboose demanded and got back up, placing both hands on Pandora's face, unleashing all he could without holding back. He just had to get Caboose out of there. Get out of here, Caboose. This thing is gonna fuck you up. We're not going anywhere. Caboose replied as Griffin Lopez helped by taking a side on one of Pandora's arms and holding him in place. Tucker, Donut and Sarge held onto Church, Donut by his waist and the other two on his right and left. Doc and Simmons joined the big guys to make sure Pandora was secured tight by holding onto Lopez, and Griffin pushed them into Pandora. Get out of here, you fucking idiots. Church ordered. Not a chance, Blue. Sarge argued. We all in this shit together. Griff added. Tucker just looked at his friend for a while. See you on the other side this time, Church. Church paused before speaking, knowing they were in for something none of them would truly be prepared for. I'm sorry about this, he whispered under his breath before the pain could begin. The pain. There was bright white light, so strong and so blinding it made everyone try to block the intensity of it before they could become blinded by it. They all stumbled as they felt the air grow so cold that their breath became visible through the white smoke. When radiant light finally settled, they found themselves in some generic type of room, like a cell of some kind. 4 walls but no door. What's more, as they looked around, no one was actually with them, everyone was in their own personal cell. What in Sam hell? This doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? Church, where is everyone? KS esto. I think I'm gonna be sick. Church. What's happening? Church. They were all alone, facing their own isolation and solidarity. Gray walls, what seemed like fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But they weren't entirely alone. There was a voice, one they knew too well to be just anyone random. It was Church, but it almost wasn't. This voice sounded tired, exhausted even. He looked messy and disheveled. His body looked skinny and malnourished. Hair was unkempt and messy. 5 o'clock shadow, and finally his eyes looked empty, void of any life left in him. He was in the corner of the room, farthest from them, as he wore rags rather than armor or actual clothing. And he kept repeating himself, please, please, no more, please. I can't. I'm too tired, please no. His repeated whispering made them all cautious and hesitant to approach him. Their feet dragged with each step as they approached what they could only assume was the memory of Church when he went through his early process. Eventually they got up the courage to approach him. What? Who are you? He asked as he felt on edge. Sarge. Call me Sarge, we came to get ya out of this mess. Sarge told the tired artificial intelligence. No. Please. I can't do this again, please no, too tired. Look kiddo, we all tired, but you listen to me. You can do this. You're stronger than you know, don't tell anyone else I said that. Sarge stood back up and gave out his hand. So, ya coming? Lopez. Lopez approached with heavy metal steps as he got close to Church. He took a second to check something and took a sigh of relief as it was confirmed. I'm just your friendly omnic mechanic, and you need to come with me. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm too broken. Lopez pulled out a large monkey wrench for Church to grab onto. There's nothing too broken we can't fix. If there is, we can always make something new. Simmons. Simmons rushed by his side and did a quick inspection on Church. You've seen way worse, come on let's go. But I'll just fall again. I won't get back up. Simmons pushed up his scanner like it was a monocle. Statistically speaking, you get up more times than you fall. If you get up 7 times and fall 7, you just need to get back up 1 more time. Griff. Griff took on a different approach than his friends. Instead of getting him up, the big man took a seat right next to him. You don't mind if I catch my breath, do you? Shouldn't you be trying to escape? Just leave me. I'm too. Church tried to explain. Yeah, you're tired. Rest isn't laziness, it's a necessity, we'll go when you're. But we both go, capiche? Donut. Donut skipped over to go next to Church. He looked down at the glum version of his friend. Hey there, don't be a stranger. We need your help. I can't. I'm too scared. Church admits to Donut. Donut brushed off the comment. Is that it? So are all of us. As a wise man once said, courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Doc. Easy there pal, let's be reasonable. He raised up his hands as his version of Church was more violent, tossing things against the walls, kicking, punching and doing anything he could at them. This Church roared in fury. There's no fucking point. What am I supposed to do? That rage, that anger you're feeling. Doc spoke to him like trying to ease a wild horse. Chanel it, and use it. Make it yours and make it work for you. Caboose. I'm your friend, we've been through a lot together. I fought for you and you fought for us. Caboose tried to make his best friend remember. Church cocked his head to the side trying to comprehend the reasoning behind this. Why? Because that's what friends do, that's what families do. Finally Tucker. They didn't say nothing for the longest time, just stood there staring at each other, trying to figure each other out. Neither moved, not even blinking, because whatever version of Church Tucker was staring face to face with, was definitely not his best friend. This looked older, wrinkled and his eyes were pure white and glowing. So, what you need some type of motivation to keep going. Come on Church, get over this and let's just Tucker started speaking to his. Just as Tucker gestured to the door, the figure that resembled Church finally talked, but with a different voice. Am I a bad person? What? Tucker asked. Both to the question and the unusual way his voice sounded. What do you mean? Church, you're our friend. Am I a bad person? Church's unusual form finally made sense once the figure started to add more details and his voice had a bit of a southern twang. When all the details came in, Tucker was staring face to face with the original. Not Epsilon, not Alpha, not even his friend Church, the original, Director Leonard L. Church. Tucker ignited his sword and prepared for a final face-off. Do you have any idea how much damage you caused? The pain, the deaths, you're responsible for almost everything bad that has ever happened to us. To others. I know. The memory of the director didn't even argue with Tucker. Tucker took a moment to scan his surroundings. One quick glance revealed that the director stood in center, crowded by shadows of himself at war with each other. It made sense. Church's psychotic form wasn't himself, or Omega, or any single artificial unit. Instead, it was all of them. The hatred they had towards the director, the confliction between the reason he did this and results it caused, even the mask they used to hide behind the war within themselves. It made it worse when they kept reminding themselves that they all came from him. The director bowed his head as the shadows surrounded him, wrapping themselves, constricting his movement. Tucker knew what Church was truly doing to himself, what the director did only to himself. He bowed his head as he went forward. You've done some bad shit. Maybe they had the best intentions behind them. A lot of people still got caught in the fallout of your collapsing mentality. But in that chaos it gave birth to something different, something crazy, something exciting, something incredible. You gave us a new purpose than just cannon fodder for your troops. Quote. The shadows trying to choke out the director ceased and eased up. I can't forgive you for everything, and I doubt that even others would be willing to forgive you the same. But maybe you should forgive yourself, but do me a favor. Tucker paused for a moment. Don't forget what you did, just try to learn from it, okay? Okay. The director nodded. They then faced the door out. A bright rectangular portal opened up for them to walk through. See you on the other side, Church. Tucker saluted before jumping into the light. Church looked down at the shiny floor at his own reflection. He went from looking like the director to looking exactly how he remembered himself to be. Smiling, he turned around to confirm there was only one shadow left. Yeah, see you soon. Church said as the bright light enveloped him. Chapter 32, or does it? The finale. For the longest time the members of Overwatch kept their distance from the fight to avoid whatever dangers might still be present from the area. After the Reds and Blues had rushed into the broken dome that Church had made to keep them out. When they held down Pandora, they had been caught in the mind-splitting memory flood that Church had barely lived through. After being kept in that space for such a prolonged time, the dome shattered and the several dispersed in different directions, collapsing on the floor, assumed dead. After all, who could have lived through it? When the long silence fell on for too long, they all dispersed and went over to different members of the Reds and Blues, checking to see if any of them would get up or be able to recover from whatever it was that happened to them. Mercy went over to Tucker, who was closest to Church, holding onto his best friend's hand. She'd put her head down for a second but reached up to place a few fingers around his neck to try to feel a pulse. Then she heard a voice. You got to kiss him to wake him up. She heard Tucker's voice announce. She looked back down to see Tucker's left eye crack open a bit, then close back up. Tucker. Tucker, you're okay. She cheered. Tucker can't hear you, only a kiss can wake him up. Fine, I'll get Zarya. Quote. Well, go get her. Oh, I thought you would object. Tucker sat up. Why would I object to kissing Zarya? She's attractive in her own ways. Why would kissing me be so bad? Zarya leaned over to ask Mercy. Mercy started to stutter, trying to think of a way to save herself. No, it's not that. Anyone. Maybe later, Zarya. Tucker suggested as he started to stand up. Sarge, you up? Sarge shot up from ground. He lied face first in, saluting as he looked at no one in particular. I was not given permission to die. Speaking of which, sound off, who's dead? A large groan came from where a few of the other Reds were laying. Simmons sat up slowly. Request permission to stay down, Sarge. Granted, just this once. Sarge started lighting up his cigar. Simmons turned to the large figure next to him and tried to shake it alive. Griff. Come on, Griff, please be okay. After a few seconds went by, there was no response as the medics nearby got nervous and crouched down to check on their friend. Sarge even stopped puffing, turning around to see his big boy, quiet and still. He dropped his cigar and began putting his helmet over his heart, when, zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz alive, just resting. Which pissed off Sarge for unsanctioned nap, dag nagget Griff. I did not give you permission to sleep. Cassidy, Genji and Farah looked over Lopez who seemed to be twitching and convulsing his body uncontrollably. Sarge. Your man ain't looking too good. Cassidy had told the Red Leader. Sarge took a quick glance, seeing Lopez in arm's reach of Griff and remembered an old program he installed that also worked as AA reboot. Nah, don't sweat it. Code word, dirtbag. Lopez's arm extended out at great speed and sucker punched Griff in the face. Oh wow wow w. Why me? Donut got up like nothing happened as he stretched out, cracking his back in a few places. I don't know what happened but that will never happen again. I haven't had a moment like that since college freshman year. My cheer squad wanted to. Donut, we did not just nearly die to hear you accidentally make an innuendo. Stop it, Simmons demanded. Doc stood there waving at his friends, who were caught up in their own moments. Well, I guess this is forever the story of Doc. Doc, get over here. Sarge groaned after hearing the medic basically whine that he was almost forgotten. Doc smiled as he ran over and hugged Griff and Simmons who were not able to move out of the way. Caboose stood looking down, completely unfazed as Bridget had ran over to hug him tightly, or that Reinhardt had slapped him on his back in congratulations. When they saw his glum face, they followed his eyes to see that he was looking at Church, frozen with a peaceful smile. The rest of the team got up and gathered in a circle while Church laid still. You said, you would see me on the other side. Tucker told him, I should have been specific. Caboose didn't fight it as the tears rolled down his cheeks. Church, can you please come back? Caboose, it's gonna be hard to say goodbye but, we have to, I'm sorry. He's in a better place. Tucker knelt down closer to Church. Nah, let's face it, he's burning in hell. Fuck you, dude. Church sat up as he came to. No tears, no sobs, not even a proper farewell. May we've gotten used to it. Like an itch that won't go away. Tucker compared. Church reached out a hand which Caboose took to help him. Are you comparing to a rash that you want me to look at later? Maybe. Tucker said, half jokingly. Mercy had to approach to check his vitals. Aside from some minor bumps and bruises, I'd say that you all came out fine. But, the way you phrased it, you made it seem as if there was no coming back, that it was mutually assured destruction. What had happened? There must be some logical reason you all came out perfectly fine. Winston began racking his highly developed brain about how this could possibly happen. Caboose pondered out loud for a moment. Friendship. Earning a collective groan at the overly cheesy line from all of the Reds and Blues present. All except for Church, who was about to explain the real reason how and why they managed to live through such an experience. He cleared his throat to get their attention. Actually, he's not far off. It's actually because of them I survived. Do you mean to tell me that your bond is so deep with each other that it shielded you from the pain of your past? Tracer looked at them with admiration for their closeness. But the smartest being in the room had to shoot that thought down. What? No, Tracer, that's just fucking dumb. I meant, although I had all the fragments with me, it was still one mind and several pieces trying to stay together enduring it all. One mind against all that is like waiting for a lamb after the slaughterhouse. But, you throw in a few idiots, with perfectly, well, mid-levels of sanity. No offense. None taken. Sarge admitted as the rest agreed. Indestructible, motherfuckers. Church described the team. But, what about Tex? May asked as she looked over to the woman in question. At first Church began to brush off the very idea that Tex, the one person he finally managed to save, by actually doing something different this time would be hurt or worse. Until he turned his head to see her, there and on the floor, still as stone. Tex. Oh no. Tex. He got down on his knees and began picking up her limp body in his arms. No, come on, come back to me, please, it took me a while, just to get it right. Church began crying, really tears began to cascade down his cheeks. Caboose walked over and held his head low. I'm sorry, Church, I thought, maybe I could get this right, maybe I could save her. It's not your fault, Caboose. Church spoke as he choked back tears. Tex, I'm sorry. I never could get you out of my head and I always end up needing you. I know. I drag you into my messes because I always end up needing you to save my ass, either that or just. I'm too weak without you. I know. I just, quote, oh God, are you gonna say you love me, now? Tex sat up and gave him a puzzling look. Tex, but, how? Look, I can't do soft mushy shit, okay? So let's just say someone didn't fuck up this time. Tex answered, looking over to Caboose. Caboose actually looked around in Tex's direction to see who she was talking about. That's when it had finally clicked after 10 long seconds of everyone looking at him with that confused stare, 1,000-yard stare. Oh. Me. Caboose was your best option. Tracer answered. Church then relived the exact moment he realized who needed to help, who would have the highest probability of success. Everyone, even the members of Blood Gulch and Overwatch, would all come to the same conclusion. Tex was a great warrior, but she would later meet a great fail. The probability curve from all lead to it, but Caboose was someone so far off the probability curve that his mind existed on an entirely different plane of existence with its own set of math. So far off that delta, the part of him consisting of logic and numbers, wouldn't be able to understand him. He looked up and smiled at the big lug. Thank you, for being my friend. Your best friend, Church. Are you two gonna kiss now? We can all look the other way. Tex joked. Fuck you guys. He laughed at her response, in turn she and others laughed back. Mercy actually wiped a tear of joy. You all really have a way with each other. What can we say, it's just how we are. Sarge gave a hearty laugh. Winston, however, was busy staring at the monster who was stuck in a kneeling position. The eye once known as Sigma was on his knees with no light within its eyes, no movement whatsoever, just existing there. Drool fell from its stolen face as the empty eyes stayed opened. Church approached the big ape scientist. Sad, isn't it? Indeed, he had abilities unlike any other. Maybe we can learn from it, his failures will be our lessons. Give me a sec. Church noted as he turned away. Maybe not the information behind the tech, but the very morals that we can pick up and use. Maybe we can. Winston trailed off. The rapid, loud, hard-hitting bullets from Tex's heavy machine gun echoed throughout the cave, making everyone cover their ears from the noise. Sharp, hot metal tore through armor, flesh and bones like a fat kid through cake. Meanwhile, Church, who was the one holding said killing machine, had a blank expression on his face while he committed said crime against the remains of his foe. Winston had a confused and horrified look on his face as Church let his finger off the trigger and the gun eventually came to a halt, leaving nothing but pieces of the scrap armor, some unsalvageable junk and what little flesh remained. I'm sorry, you were saying? Church asked as he dropped the gun. The gorilla finally got his bearings just to yell at Church, God damn it, Church, I wasn't going to study the technology. You do realize Gamma, or Gary as he likes to be called, is based on my deceit. Meaning he can detect bullshit better than a lie detector. Quote. Fine. Just promise me that. Winston sighed knowing he had been called out on his lie. Yeah, no one is gonna get any new tech from me. That is locked tighter than any vault in history. Church eased his mind. Now if you'll excuse us, things are about to get a little uncomfortable. Winston followed Church's eyes and looked to where Church had gestured and saw Carolina, the best of the best, facing Tex, or the memory of her. The silence in the area was palpable, and the tension was stronger than anything that could have been forged or made. Carolina had just stared at the face of who her mother was supposed to be or who she once was. Tex could hardly look her in the eye, instead focusing by looking at one spot on the ground while she rubbed her neck. None made a move or opened their mouths. Tex was the first one to try. Look, I know I'm not exactly her, and my own personality, memories and all that are based off someone else, so I can't say exactly what she would say. Carolina started taking steps to her, limping but showing no signs of pain, just focused on getting to Tex. God, this is hard to say. Look what I wanna say. What I am trying to say is, even though I'm not really. Stopping mid-sentence as she saw Carolina right in front of her, inching closer by the millisecond with her arms out, almost as if she was going for hold, or to choke her out. But instead the passed her neck, and when she finally wrapped her arms around Tex, the hold wasn't constricting or too tight. This was an actual hug, from one of the toughest people in the room, the first toughest. She could hear the tears being fought back while Carolina held her, the sobs that led to water running down her shoulder. I know it's not the real thing, but it's what I need," Carolina cried. Tex slowly and with great hesitation lowered her arms to embrace her daughter. Even if she wasn't the real Allison, she still had the programming any mother would have. Holding her daughter close to her chest felt right. The scene made several grown men and women cry. Church walked over and placed a hand on both their shoulders. You don't have to say it, Church, we all know," Tex interrupted. He smiled at the two of them, then still grinning as he looked at the rest, "Let's get out of here." As the group began to walk out of the broken ship, Griff heard his stomach rumble. "Anyone else hungry?" "I know a good diner," Cassidy had suggested. Route 66. Several drinks, bags of ice and lots of plates later everyone ate, drank and nursed their wounds and sores. Some with cuts, some with bruises and bones that were once broken now rapidly healed thanks to the many support specialists around them. Everyone groaned as they put bags of ice in various places to numb their pain, that rang throughout their bodies. Church sat at the end of the counter with Winston on the very end to his right and Tex to his left. The ones on Tex's left were Tucker, Tracer, May and Sarge, following in that order. Then Washington walked in between him and the ape, while Carolina went between him and Tex. Washington hung up his phone with a smirk. "Well, DC has just informed me that because of the situation resolving itself they won't be needing to file anything to the UN. Your secret is safe, for now. Thanks. Take care of yourself. Take care of them. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go home to Loki," Washington stated, grabbing his mug to go. Carolina saw him leaving and got up to hold her mom's hand one more time. "Sorry, he's my ride. We should definitely catch up again. Say when and I'll be there." Tex nodded to her daughter. Winston took another bite of his banana peanut butter pancakes as he carried on his conversation with Church. "You know, I still don't understand it." "What's up?" Church replied. "How did Pandora get a null sector ship and multiple automatons on his side?" Church took a long slow sip of his black coffee, no cream or sugar to dilute the bitterness he was fond of. "Yeah, that is troubling. I'm surprised you're not worried more. You seem to be taking the news rather well. I figured you'd be searching for more answers about this." "Winston, there's no real point in worrying about things outside our control. All we can hope for is that at the end of the day we still wake up just to ask more questions the next." Church started explaining his way of looking at the situation until his eyes changed to multiple colors. "Oh, about time. What? That was a very long, very tedious analysis I was running since the chorus incident I nearly died in," Church admitted. "Oh, you know, I keep forgetting you're an artificial intelligence that processes more data than most government programs, think tanks and major corporations all combined." "Okay, maybe not all combined. All combined, trust me. I'm that smart." "Okay then, mister, I'm that smart. What did you get?" Winston mocked as Church placed a device down and projected several images, blueprints, logs, calendars and much more information, all taking Winston by surprise and retracting his insult. "Okay, this is stupid," Church replied, looking at all the data. "It doesn't make any sense." "What do you mean?" Winston cocked his head, hearing the words leave Church's mouth despite the display he put up. Church took a long pause to come with an answer and a solution. "It means I have to make an announcement to everyone." A few moments later, "You're leaving us?" Caboose asked Church, making everyone in the room start shouting their complaints and protests in a massive uproar. Church had to wait a full 10 seconds before his voice could be audible enough to hear. Whoa, easy. Easy. I'm not going away forever." "Geez. You're not." Tucker looked at his friend with a raised eyebrow. "Far from it. Let me explain." Church projected the earlier display from his conversation with Winston. "Okay, so we all know Talon hired Felix and Meta on the premise they were mercenaries from Hargrove. Right?" Bridget nodded as she helped Caboose follow along by pointing at the pictures. "But Hargrove never had any contact since he had been imprisoned," Church stated as he crossed off their pictures with a red X. "Then there's Chorus. What about Chorus? Sarge asked. The pictures of Null Sector troops, the ship and various other elements related to the attack appeared on the screen. He somehow mobilized an entire attack and then some with damn near thousands of troops. I don't buy it. He was still in that suit under lock and key, so he had no chance of contacting anyone, let alone direct orders for his escape. He's starting to make some sense of things here, Junker Queen pointed out. Cassidy extinguished his cigar he smoked down to end as he listened to the extensive questioning. What do ya think? I think this was somebody else's plan. I think they wanted to see us, see what they were up against. Church connected the dots. Something is coming, and I'd be ready for it. What's coming? Tucker wondered. An invasion. If I were you guys, I'd stay by the phone. I have a feeling this is just the beginning, Church stated as he picked up a backpack and slung it on his back. As for me, I'm going into hiding. I want to make sense of some things. So I guess this is, see you around. Winston raised his eyebrow, offering Church a handshake. So it is. He accepted it as he made his rounds, saying farewell to the members of Overwatch real quick. Then getting to the Reds and Blues. This was gonna be the hardest. Oh Church. Donut hugged his torso and sobbed into his chest. I can't stand the though of being away from you for too long. Church managed to pry himself in time for Lopez to come along and share a simple nod, while he escorted Donut. No words were really needed as Church was finally able to decipher what it is that he would have said. They shared more of the role as the protectors of their team. The mutual understanding of the importance of their roles was just enough for them. Next came Doc, who stuck his hand out waiting for Church to take a simple, well, I guess, we'll see each other again. Doc, get in here. He held his arms open, hesitant at first. He took a step, then pulled it back, then finally came into a short hug. I want to say thank you. You're a shit field doctor, but a damn fine medic. Thanks for making us feel better and then saving us from death. Doc struggled, but finally began to sniffle at the acknowledgement of all his hard work. Okay, moving on. Sarge shoved Doc out of the way and stood straight in the ease military position. Son, let's start off by saying that even though we started off as enemies and at first I have grown to hate you. Then through the years of camaraderie, mutual hardships and so forth. Everything that we endured, I like to think that we have endured together, through thick and thin. And when you share experiences like that with someone, it takes you from being less of an ally and more of a brother in arms, you might say. And I must say I could think of no other person in this world that I can respect as an equal. My friend, my ally, my brother. You have proven time and time again that you have amazing qualities as leader and a comrade, one that can be trusted with my very life. Dare I say it, but I like to view you as the son I ain't never Church's voice interrupted the old man. When Sarge inspected the still and almost monotone Church, he put his hand out to poke at his chest. His finger phased right through and went deeper. He tested it further by waving his hand through Church's face. Hey! Sarge shouted at Church's clone as he snapped his head back and forth looking for him, already almost wrapping up his, until next time, so longs, with Griffin Simmons. Sarge huffed as he stormed off. Forget it. I don't have to tell you both to take care of each other. Church acknowledged their bond with a crisp high five, before whispering to Simmons far enough where the other Overwatch members were unable to hear. Hey Simmons. You still gonna go after May, because I seriously think you have a shot if you. Nah, I'm good, besides I might wait for the right one. Simmons waved the idea aside, even though it would be nice. Griff patted his lanky friend's shoulder. She's out there dude, maybe in the universe, on some distant planet, maybe Mars. Oh har. Yeah well, you're still fat. Not as fat as Roadhog, that dude was BIIIG. You're not wrong. Church chuckled to himself as he strolled away to the last two on his list. Don't start nothing you two, I hate it when couples fight. Fuck you. They both flipped him the bird as he carried. Caboose was waiting next to Tucker. For once he wasn't bouncing side to side or fidgeting. His grin wasn't all cheesy and huge. He was standing like a regular person, a mature person. As for Tucker, he was leaning against the stack of crates nearby, that was used for loot boxes. They all waited for him to approach. When he finally did stop, about 1 meter in front of them, the whole world drowned out. Well, Church raised a brow. You guys gonna make this all emotional? Nope. Caboose smiled. No begging me to stay. No bartering or offers. No, sorry about that. Tucker added. Don't be. He took a sigh and looked back at Overwatch, the Reds all chatting and having a good time. You know, you guys have come so far. I used to think you guys were weird and annoying. And, you are, but, you guys are more than that. You're powerful, passionate, determined, resilient and I couldn't imagine a better group of friends to be stuck in that canyon with. You sure you'll be alright without us? Yeah, I got Tex watching my back. I know you guys will be good. Church replied, where you heading? Japan. I still have some questions about this sword I still don't quite understand. Been everywhere, Central America, South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, all hints but nothing solid, yet. And you Caboose. You'll be fine without me. Not really, but I will at some point. Besides Reinhardt and Bridget asked me to join them, so I won't be alone. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Caboose told himself. Church broke his smile and went over to hug him. I'll miss you Caboose. Your aim will get better. And you ruined it. Church said as he pushed off the big guy and started walking off. Take care, I'm off, please don't kill each other. No promises. Church made it outside the diner and took a breath of fresh air, before checking himself making sure he had everything on his persons. Rifle on his back, cloak with a hood and all his eye, along with a few mementos and charms he got from the rest of the group inside. He smiled as he looked out at the setting sun, feeling something inside him, a mix of pride for his friends, joy for the moments and thankful for the memories. Oi, you ain't wishing me fare thee well. Junker Queen called out as she leaned against the diner's outside wall. You're not staying. Nah, got meself a kingdom to run. She walked over and bent down in front of his face, so they were both at eye level. Cool. I should probably wait for Tex, she should be out soon. Now what's the rush? I'm sure she wouldn't mind if we chat. Junker Queen used one finger to caress his bearded chin. Church was stammering at a loss for words, trying some way to get out of this damning situation. While every part of his mind was screaming no, there was one strange piece of him that was thinking that it might be nice. Thankfully he stayed loyal as Tex walked out. She stepped past Junker Queen and threw Church over her shoulder and was about to keep but walking. But she turned around midway and looked Junker Queen in the eye, as she pointed at Church, this ass is mine. She sealed that claim by smacking said butt with a loud audible thwap. Junker Queen laughed heartedly, "Aw come on mate, we can share." "Don't even think about it," Tex declared to Church. Church just shrugged his shoulders, "I wasn't, but hear me out." "No. Now sit down and shut up." Tex finished talking as she sat Church down on the seat of a cherry red motorcycle that belonged to a certain cowboy Tex had bested in a game of cards. Church did as he was told and sat behind the bars, waiting for Tex to move him back and take control of the ride. While she was busy adjusting a few bags onto the side, a group of patrons stepped outside to wave them off. He looked back and waved them off as Tex was hoping in. She saw a tear being fought against, welling up in his eyes. "Hey, it's not like you'll never see them. You know that right?" "Yeah, that's right," he remembered. Putting on his helmet, Tex revved up the bike and drove off, down the seemingly never-ending highway. Friends disappearing in the rear-view mirror, the feel of the one he loved in his arms, the moving sun and the uncertain future ahead. Until the next time they would receive a recall. Finn. This is the end of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel.